Hey truckers, here is part 5 of My Dad is My Mom's Mortal Enemy. Let's dive into the video. No denial meant acknowledgement. Jiang Meng patted the table excitedly with both hands. She couldn't help but tease, yesterday he was the driver, today he's the boyfriend. This change in identity sure happened quickly. And you told me he was just an ordinary man, your standards for ordinary are way too high. If he's considered ordinary, where does that leave my husband? Qing Jinlan glared at her for always speaking badly about her husband. Where's your husband? LA test NOVLS on n.co. Jiang Meng's husband had returned from a business trip and would join them for dinner tonight too. There's a place near here that has really delicious sour and spicy noodles. I asked him to buy some for me. Don't change the subject. You've hidden your boyfriend away for so many years and only brought him out today for me to see. I have so many questions to ask him. Jiang Meng's words spurted out like a machine gun, not even stopping to take a breath. She turned to look at Xiao Qingzhe, driver Xiao, a good sister bringing her boyfriend to meet me for the first time definitely can't escape an interrogation. You have to be mentally prepared. Xiao Qingzhe's eyes smiled deeply, as long as I can answer, I definitely will. Jiang Meng immediately felt this Mr. Xiao was a sly old fox who had cultivated for thousands of years. His words sounded pleasing to the ear, but were meaningless once said. Qing Jinlan placed the menu in front of Jiang Meng, order first. Jiang Meng pushed the menu back to Qing Jinlan, you order, you know what I like to eat. She wanted to cross hands with the sly fox of a driver first. For a couple reunited after breaking up, there were definitely sensitive topics at the core that outsiders could not ask about. Jiang Meng finally chose the most harmless question she was most curious about, how did you two get to know each other? When people are in love, some have love at first sight, while others develop feelings over time. Jiang Meng looked at the two people before her, unable to grasp for the moment which type they belonged to. The looks of these two were definitely at a level where love at first sight could happen, but Jinlan's personality was cold, and her defenses were heavy. It would be hard for her to accept a stranger getting close. If not for her own fiery enthusiasm and initiative in the past, they would not have become good friends. Xiao Qingzhe, you should really not associate with my fiery passion at all. In the past, she thought Qing Jinlan's boyfriend must be a sunny and cheerful guy, who could capture this iceberg beauty's heart. But she didn't expect this mysterious man was also an aloof type. More importantly, these two cold ones gave birth to such a sweet girl like Qing Liqui. This was really an occult issue. So she was very curious about how these two got to know each other. Qing Jinlan's hand that was flipping the menu stopped. She spoke before Xiao Qingzhe, it was the winter break in our freshman year. Remember I bumped into a car after eating at Yueshi Gu? It was his car. Jiang Meng was surprised, was it when I confessed to Shiran but got rejected? Xiao Qingzhe's hand pouring water paused. He looked at Qing Jinlan. Qing Jinlan's eyes glanced over him but didn't say anything. But Xiao Qingzhe understood everything in that instant. He went to hold her hand under the table, but Qing Jinlan avoided him and put both hands on the table, not giving him a chance to hold her hand. Jiang Meng's husband came back with sour and spicy noodles. He stood next to the table and coughed lightly a couple of times. Jiang Meng saw her husband, and her voice immediately became coquettish. She pulled out the chair next to her for her husband, dear, you know you're the only one I love. Who's Shiran? I don't even remember him. Jiang Meng confessing to Shiran but got rejected, this was something Jiang Meng's husband already knew about. It was Jiang Meng who took the initiative to tell her husband. This was a little trick between the couple to enhance their relationship. They would bring this up from time to time and bicker playfully to spice up their marriage. Jealousy hurts the body in large amounts but delights the soul in small amounts. Xiao Qingzhe and Jiang Meng's husband exchanged some brief, boring social pleasantries between men. Jiang Meng was only concerned about the origin of her best friend's relationship and held Qing Jinlan's hand to ask her, that's not right. The one who got off the car that day wasn't him. With Xiao's looks, if I had seen him once, there's no way I would forget. Jiang Meng's husband coughed again. Jiang Meng turned around and patted her husband's hand to reassure him, it's okay, dear. No matter what others think of his looks, you'll always be the most handsome one in my heart. After some perfunctory words, she looked back at Qing Jinlan again, waiting for her answer. Qing Jinlan took a sip of water. It was his driver who got off the car that day. That day when she left the parking lot, she saw the black Rolls-Royce again at an intersection. She was startled for a moment and bumped into it. She was fully responsible. His driver got off and told her to just go ahead. But she still left her contact information with the driver, telling him to call her if there were any issues. In the end, it was him who called. Jiang Meng let out a long "oh" and had a knowing look. "So Xiao, you fell in love at first sight with our Jinlan through the car window that day?" Xiao Qingzai draped his arm leisurely over the back of Qing Jinlan's chair. His pitch-black pupils were filled with certainty. "That wasn't the first time I saw her." Jiang Meng was even more gossipy now. "When was it then?" Qing Jinlan thought he was going to mention inside Yueshi Gu when she practiced confessing to Shi Ran. But Xiao Qingzai answered Jiang Meng while looking at Qing Jinlan. "I transferred to Shi Ran's class for the last 2 months in high school." She passed by the window looking for Shi Ran at least 3 days a week. He returned to the Xiao family during the last 2 months in high school after his father had just passed away. His mood was as gloomy as the smoggy days outside. Until a swaying ponytail appeared at the window, some things were just odd. There were so many girls with ponytails, but he could recognize her back view instantly. And Shi Ran was always standing next to that back view. Qing Jinlan's grip on the water glass tightened. She slowly turned her head to meet his eyes. Xiao Qingzai raised his brow and smiled at her. Jiang Meng was surprised at first, then her thoughts wandered to TV drama plots. "Xiao, you didn't plan that car accident, did you?" "No. Even if he had planned it, he wouldn't use a car accident for any scheme. She bumped into me herself. His car didn't even move. She dazedly bumped into him. Should he say it was destiny?" All kinds of thoughts flashed through Qing Jinlan's mind, and his gaze affirmed every single thought. Her heart started pounding loudly, even the lightning and thunder outside couldn't drown it out. On the drive back, the car was quiet again without the music. The windshield wipers worked hard to wipe the pouring rain. Qing Jinlan sat in the passenger seat with eyes closed, pretending to sleep. Although her eyes were closed, she could still feel his gaze looking over from time to time. The car slowly came to a stop. Qing Jinlan opened her eyes. "Here?" Xiao Qingzai unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned over. "Not yet. Do you want red bean cake? I'll go buy some more." Qing Jinlan looked at the dark brows and eyes up close and whispered through him, "Are you really going to buy red bean cake?" Yes and no. The stuff they bought was used up. Although he promised not to touch her tonight, he didn't have much self-control right now. Xiao Qingzai wasn't embarrassed being seen through. He touched her lips. "Then I won't buy any. I promised you a good night's sleep tonight. Can't break my word." Qing Jinlan's fingers fiddled with his cufflinks. "Unbuckle my seatbelt for me." I'll go with you." She knew it would be faster if he went alone, but on this rainy night, she didn't want to be apart from him, not even for a moment. Xiao Qingzai's dark eyes lit up. Qing Jinlan gave an unconvincing explanation. "I have stuff to buy too." "All right, let's go together." Xiao Qingzai kissed her lips. Sometimes he shouldn't listen to what she said, but her heartbeat would never lie. The car left the convenience store and finally parked in the yard. Xiao Qingzai first unbuckled his own seatbelt, then hers. He lifted her to sit on his lap without even waiting until they got into the house. "Baby, don't you have anything to ask me?" His arousal was too obvious. Qing Jinlan leaned back, but there was only the steering wheel behind her. She had nowhere to retreat. She pleaded, "Let's go inside. Your clothes are wet. You'll catch a cold." He had held the umbrella mostly to her side just now, so his clothes and hair were half soaked. Xiao Qingzai didn't budge. "Then help me take off my shirt." Qing Jinlan's voice was soft and urgent. "Take it off when we get inside." Xiao Qingzai looked up at her. "There were so many times in the hallway when you just brushed past my shoulder. You didn't even tilt your eyelashes at me. It was like I didn't even exist in your eyes. You only had Shi Ran in your heart and mind." Qing Jinlan gently stroked his wet hair. The rain had slicked it even darker. Shi Ran's mother was diagnosed with cancer around that time. He was in a really bad mood. The college entrance exam was coming up soon too. We were all very worried about him. My mom asked me to go comfort him more often. Xiao Qingzai didn't want to hear her talk about Shi Ran in that tone. He bit her lips fiercely. So many times when I saw your back view, I kept thinking, if only you would turn around and look at me once. Qing Jinlan was bitten until she softly moaned. Xiao Qingzhe, are you trying to act pitiful? Did I make you pity me? Qing Jinlan held his face and kissed the corner of his lips. Your acting skills are really good. So skilled at deceiving and cajoling. The cool air conditioning couldn't suppress the rising heat in the car. The windows fogged up, blocking the heavy rain outside and the dark night too. The downpour had the car trapped on a solitary island with only her and him on it. If last night was him relentlessly demanding from her, tonight she was the one giving. He could clearly feel her initiative and response, from her breath, to her tongue, to the surging hot tide deep inside her. The lightly bitten lips. The flushed face. The strands of hair on her forehead damp with sweat. Passionate and daring. In the jolting undulations, Xiao Qingzhe held her waist tightly. If possible, he wished the rain could go on a little longer. The next day, the downpour stopped and the sunshine was splendid with birds chirping among the flowers. Qing Jinlan didn't see any of it. She was sunk in a groggy dream all the way from the car to the VIP lounge at the airport. In her sleepy daze, she asked the person next to her, "Weren't you leaving this afternoon?" Xiao Qingzhe draped a shawl over her to block the cold air blowing from the air conditioner. After we land, you go first with Qing Liqui. Once you two leave, I'll go out. Qing Jinlan closed her eyes and nestled into his shoulder to find a comfortable position. You've always been good at scheming, she said. Xiao Qingzhe leaned down to her ear and whispered, I want to see your mother too, but would you let me? Qing Jinlan tucked her ears into her shawl. I'm going to sleep now, I'm so tired I could die. He had only let her go when it was almost dawn, and she had barely slept 2 hours total. Right now she didn't want to think about anything, she just wanted to sleep. Sleep then, said Xiao Qingzhe, knowing he was the one who had made her so tired. He stopped disturbing her and gently patted her shoulder to lull her to sleep. Qing Jinlan's head was still groggy after getting off the plane. Going 2 days with so little sleep had been too taxing. In the bathroom she splashed some cold water on her face to try and wake up a little. Pushing her luggage out, she immediately spotted little Liqui being held by Shiran. She hurried over, and Liqui also saw her mother and waved excitedly to her. When Qing Jinlan reached them, she spread her arms to take her daughter while asking Shiran, what are you doing here? Shiran replied, I had today off, so I came to drive little Liqui. Liqui hugged her mother's neck in Shiran's arms. Mommy, let Dad hold me. You must be so tired from your business trip, you look weak. Qing Jinlan kissed her cheek. Mommy's fine, darling. I just didn't sleep well without my Liqui last night. I'll take a nap when we get home and be good as new. Liqui kissed her mother back. Then let's go home quick. Granny Chu made lots of yummy food. After you eat you can take a nice nap, Mommy. Just as she finished speaking, she saw someone approaching from behind. Her eyes lit up and she was about to call Daddy, but stopped herself and urgently waved at Dad not to come over. But Daddy didn't seem to understand and kept walking towards them. Of course Xiao Qingzhe could interpret his daughter's gestures, but he couldn't just stand there watching through the glass door indifferently. Even if everything was out in the open now, his heart was still as petty as a needlepoint. Xiao Qingzhe came up beside Qing Jinlan and loosely wrapped his arm around her waist in a gesture of claiming ownership. He nodded curtly to Shiran, wanting to take his daughter. Seeing her father's hand on her mother's waist, Liqui covered one eye with her hand. When she saw her grandparents approaching, she covered her other eye. She felt like Daddy was done for today. She probably couldn't save him either. Is dinner ready? I drove. La test novls on n vel/co. What color is it? I'm almost home, he said. I guess so. Bill. Enjoy your romance. Where's Mom? People seek help cheating. It should come to a satisfactory conclusion. She has lived up to his high expectations. He has failed her daughter's hopes for him. Qing Shanhe was stunned. Qing Jinlan was also stunned. As beautiful as a blossom. Qing Jinlan. Qing Shanhe. I will protect you and little Liqui. All right, let's go. La test novls on n vel/co. We should all feel ashamed. What do you think, shall we go? The shares under Wu Jingyao's name. Because I have work. How tiring. They slept especially soundly. It was made by Snail Girl, wasn't it? It was a photo. First thing in the morning. But it was too late. For her parents. Visit novelbin.c.m for updates. Where's Xiao Jingyun? Nowhere to be found. I see. Qing Jinlan. Xiao Qingzai, she called for him. Surrounded her. Don't close it right away. The corners of his mouth turned up. You're so beautiful. Qing Jinlan succeeded. La test novls on n vel/co. Xiao Qingzai also succeeded. A little medicine. What box? Does it taste good? Xiao Qingzai. Xiao Liqui? Fei Zuhui. Qing Liqui introduced her grandmother and the Snail Fairy Girl seriously. Snail Fairy Girl, this is my grandmother. Xiao Qingzai was dragged to a dilemma by his daughter. He could only wear the golden wavy long hair on his head and cooperate with his daughter's acting, greeting Fei Zuhui as naturally as possible. Grandma, I am. Snail Fairy Girl. Fei Zuhui wanted to laugh but couldn't laugh. The corners of her mouth twitched involuntarily a few times. She barely nodded and said, Hello, Snail Fairy Girl. Qing Liqui probably also felt that the atmosphere was wrong. She took her grandmother's hand and said, Grandma, let's go. Let Snail Fairy Girl cook in peace. Let's not disturb her. Xiao Qingzai was grateful for his daughter's thoughtfulness, but the breath in his heart hadn't eased yet. He just heard Fei Zuhui say, Little Liqui, this is the first time Grandma has met Snail Fairy Girl. Grandma wants to take a picture with you and Snail Fairy Girl to keep as a souvenir. Can you tell me what happened? Qing Liqui agreed very much with her grandmother's suggestion, okay. Although Xiao Qingzai refused to wear this golden long wig on his head, he couldn't refuse to take pictures with his daughter, let alone miss this opportunity to please his future mother-in-law. Let the black history be black history. Xiao Qingzai picked up his daughter. Qing Liqui leaned her head against her dad's and made a yay gesture at the camera. The picture froze at this moment. When Qing Jianlan saw this photo, she couldn't help laughing and slumped on the table. She had to admit that this wig looked quite good on him. So what had happened while she was still asleep this morning? She forwarded this photo to him and asked, My mom said to send this photo to you as a souvenir. Can you tell me what happened? Xiao Qingzai didn't really want to answer this question. He asked her, Does your body still feel uncomfortable? Now it was Qing Jianlan who didn't really want to answer the question. I'm going to a meeting. Xiao Qingzai sent another message, Do you want to have dinner together tonight and bring little Liqui? Qing Jianlan leaned her chin on her hand and replied, Okay. Xiao Qingzai raised his eyebrows. What do you want to eat? Isn't that something you should think about? Xiao Qingzai smiled involuntarily. He felt like their relationship was getting better and better, or rather, she was slowly opening her heart to him. He put away his cell phone and hid his smile. He tapped the table with his fingers to remind the person in front of him, If you haven't made up your mind yet, you can go back and think about it. Let me know whenever you've decided. I still have other arrangements to attend to. It was obvious that he was driving the guest away. Xiao Jingyun cursed in his heart but had to pretend to smile awkwardly, I've made up my mind, but it will take some time to process the transfer. I can't wait. I want the money now. It must be in the account by noon tomorrow. Xiao Qingzai nodded, no problem. As long as you sign all the documents you should sign, the money can be in your account tonight. Xiao Jingyun gritted his teeth. Okay, get the documents ready. I'll sign them now. Xiao Jingyun indulged in wine, women and gambling, but what he liked most was still gambling. Moreover, he lost every 9 out of 10 times. The more he lost, the more he wanted to gamble again, hoping to turn the tide and win it all back someday. He couldn't restrain himself at all. His parents controlled his money tightly. When he ran out of money, he would rely on his status to borrow money from outside. The debts he owed over the years piled up with compound interest, and now they had snowballed into an astronomical figure. If the old master knew about it, before the debt collectors beat him to death, the old man would have beaten him to death first. His father was now tormented by the matter of his young mistress and going through a messy divorce. His mother was asking for a divorce and splitting their assets. She claimed it was to fight for him, but she was actually doing it for herself. She couldn't wait to take the money and fly away with her toy boy. The only liquid assets Xiao Jingyun had access to right now were the few pitiful shares, whose price kept falling day by day. Xiao Qingzhe wanted them and he was giving them away. If the old master knew about it, he would just say that Xiao Qingzhe had set a trap to bait him. Anyway, compared to Xiao Qingzhe, the old master would believe him more. He just needed to get through this hurdle first. When the old master was leaving his inheritance, what should be his would still be his. Xiao Qingzhe let his assistant A take care of the rest with Xiao Jingyun. He went into the adjoining conference room to take Demeng's call. Demeng was brief and to the point, saying he had taken photos of Wu Jingyao and Qian Huiqing together. After Xiao Qingzhe hung up the phone and looked out the window, his eyes were filled with fathomless chill. It seemed that everyone was getting restless. Wu Jingyao was patient enough. She knew what the old master hated most. All these years, she had never run into Qian Huiqing even once. One might say she was prudent, yet she was also bold enough to place her and Qian Huiqing's son, Qian Zheng, by the old master's side for decades. To Wu Jingyao, Xiao Zhangting was the incapable Lu Laodo. She had placed all her hopes on Qian Zheng. Tomorrow there would probably be a heavy rainstorm. Hopefully this rain could lower the scorching summer temperature a bit. Qing Jianlan arrived at the kindergarten gate half an hour early. She saw his car but no one was inside. Qing Jianlan called him but no one answered. So she didn't call again and just stayed in the car continuing with work. About 10 minutes before the kindergarten dismissal time, Qing Jianlan got out of the car. Then she saw a man and a woman get out of a nanny van not far away. The man was tall and the woman petite. The handsome man and beautiful woman naturally drew attention. Qing Jianlan only glanced at them briefly before withdrawing her gaze. She turned around to lock her car and walked towards the kindergarten gate. When Xiao Qingzhe saw her, he stopped talking to Shen Shiwen and strode to her side, reaching for her hand. "When did you get here? Didn't we agree that I'd come to pick you up?" Qing Jianlan imperceptibly avoided his hand, answering neither coldly nor gently, "Just now." LA test NOVLS on, N, vel/co. Shen Shiwen followed behind Xiao Qingzhe and came over to greet Qing Jianlan. "Miss Qing, hello, I'm Shen Shiwen." Qing Jianlan had heard Qing Liqui mention who Shinchuki's mother was. They didn't speak the one time they met briefly at the Bai family banquet before. This was the first time formally meeting her face to face. Shinchuchi resembled her very much, especially when smiling. The mole at the corner of her eyes was also very lovable. Qing Jianlan didn't have much resistance against people with nice smiles. She nodded slightly to Shen Shiwen. "Miss Shin, hello." Shen Shiwen smiled, eyes curving. "Just call me Shiwen. Our little Chuchi has been telling me every day how nice Miss Qing is to him. I've been wanting to invite you to a meal to thank you for taking care of him all these years." Qing Jianlan replied, "No need for a meal. I like little Chuchi very much. He's well-behaved and sensible, and takes good care of little Liqui at school too. It's only right that I show him more care. Little Liqui's birthday is coming up soon. If it's convenient for you, please come over with little Chuchi then." "Great, I'm free these days, resting. Chuchi and I will definitely go over then." Shen Shiwen agreed without hesitation. She wanted to go with her son to give little Liqui birthday blessings and also convey the birthday wishes from his godmother. The kindergarten dismissal bell rang. The children rushed out of the classrooms, eager to get out. Shen Shiwen spotted Shinchuchi and jogged over to pick him up. Xiao Qingzhe and Qing Jianlan also walked over. Xiao Qingzhe stared at her profile. "Angry? Why would I be angry? I'm not a balloon. Is being angry the only thing I can do all day?" Qing Jianlan spoke indifferently, her eyes on the kindergarten yard without glancing his way at all. Xiao Qingzhe firmly held her hand in an unbreakable grip, quickly explaining his relationship with Shen Shiwen. "She calls my mom her godmother. My mom treats her like her own daughter. I treat her like my own sister. That's the relationship we have. You're jealous, aren't you?" There was laughter in his eyes and his tone was not questioning but affirmative confirmation. He had noticed her abnormal mood from the start but didn't immediately clarify his relationship with Shen Shiwen. He actually quite liked seeing her like this. He liked her being jealous over him. Qing Jianlan's ears were a little red. She turned to look at him and spoke just as affirmatively, "What jealousy? I don't even like being jealous. I don't even dip dumplings in vinegar when I eat them." Qing Liqui ran out of the classroom with her little school bag, first saw her mom and shouted loudly "Mom," then saw her dad and happily shouted "Dad," and finally buried her head in Mom and Dad's arms. "Mom, Dad, why did you both come to pick me up today?" Xiao Qingzhe took over her school bag. Dad and Mom came to pick up little Liqui to have dinner together. "Today we are going to have a big meal." "Great, I love big meals the most." Qing Liqui excitedly shook her little braids and saw Aunt Xinshuan next to her. She hadn't seen Aunt Shin for a long time. She greeted Xinshuan loudly, "Aunt Shin." Xinshuan held Shinchuki's hand as she walked over, smiling and praising little Liqui for being even more beautiful, while Shinchuchi obediently greeted Uncle and Auntie Xiao. Qing Liqui happily shared the good news with Shinchuchi. "I'm going to have a big meal with my mom and dad." Shinchuchi replied, "I'm also going to have a big meal with my mom." "Oh, I see." Qing Liqui looked at the adults, "Then we should just have a big meal together." Shinchuan quickly said, "Auntie can't eat with little Liqui today. I already made reservations at a restaurant and invited some other friends. Let's eat together next time." Shinchuan actually didn't have any friends she invited at all. This was the dinner time for their family of 3. If she dared interfere, Xiao Qingzhe wouldn't let her off easy. She still had something that she needed his help with recently, so she couldn't upset him. Shinchuan has been thinking about whether she should withdraw from this circle and move behind the scenes. Being away for months at a time during a drama shoot, she and little Chuchi barely have any time together. She has already missed out on 6 years of his life and can't miss out on any more moments of him growing up. Back then, her relationship with Li Peifeng was as bad as it could get. She was not mentally prepared at all for the pregnancy. After giving birth to little Chuchi, she had postpartum depression. She didn't want to see Li Peifeng, nor did she want to see the baby. Every time she heard the baby cry, she felt an urge to die from the repression, feeling that she couldn't be a good mom and didn't deserve to be one either. She only wanted to escape, and she escaped very far away. It took her a very long time to get out of that patch of darkness that she never wants to revisit. But she also owed little Chuchi a lot. At first she wanted to go back and find him, but the more she wanted to go back, the more afraid she became, afraid that he would hate her. And the more afraid she was, the less she dared to go back, shrinking in her own turtle shell, only able to watch him from afar. Little Chuchi was much braver than his mom. He found her, letting her know that she could learn to be a mom, and also giving her a chance to make up for lost time with him. She couldn't miss this chance again. She had to plan carefully about the path she needed to take next. Qing Liqui swung her little legs to the beat of the music playing in the car. "Mom, where are we going for the big meal?" Qing Jinglan was redoing her braids. "I don't know either. Your dad made the plans. Ask your dad." Qing Liqui turned to ask Dad, "Dad, where are we going to eat?" Xiao Qingzhe gently replied, "We are going to the place where your mom and dad had our first date." The place where mom and dad had their first date? Qing Liqui's voice went up a notch in excitement. "Mom, where was your and dad's first date?" This question stumped Qing Jinglan. Their relationship became official in a very ambiguous way, without a clear day marking them as boyfriend and girlfriend. If counting from their first kiss, then their first date didn't happen here, but in Jiangnan. Surely he wasn't planning on driving all the way to Jiangnan. She vaguely replied to her daughter, "You'll know when we get there." Xiao Qingzhe looked at her through the rearview mirror. Qing Jinglan also looked at him. She just didn't know where he was referring to. Making a fuss over a simple dinner, she didn't believe he remembered all of their first times. When they arrived, Qing Jinglan finally realized which place he meant. How could this count as the place of their first date? This was simply where they first had a meal together. At that time, he had contacted her to discuss compensation for the car accident, saying that just a meal would cover the repair costs, a very clumsy way of asking a girl out. But she had foolishly agreed. Western food would be too romantic, so she had picked a down-to-earth local restaurant. Other than enjoying the food, there was no particular mood sitting in the restaurant. Wao Qingliqui held her mom with one hand and her dad with the other, walking into the restaurant with her mouth open, letting out an exclamation, "Dad, you sure know how to pick places. This restaurant looks like it serves really tasty food, smells so good." Xiao Qingzhe replied to his daughter, "Your mom was the one who picked this restaurant originally." Qingliqui was curious, so for mom and dad's first date, it was mom who asked dad out? Xiao Qingzhe. Qing Jinglan was about to get annoyed by his words, but laughed again because of what her daughter said. The restaurant manager leading the way up front was biting his lips hard to keep from laughing out loud. He had to be a proper restaurant manager and not eavesdrop on customers, even though he wasn't exactly eavesdropping since he was listening openly. Xiao Qingzhe struggled to make up for it. Dad now knows very clearly what your mom likes to eat. Qing Liqui tilted her head looking at Dad. How could you like someone for a long time yet not know what she likes to eat? Dad, was your liking of Mom not good enough? Xiao Qingzhe. Qing Jinglan was like a warm little cotton-padded coat whenever she stood up for her. Although Xiao Qingzhe ended up shooting himself in the foot, he was still very confident in taking his daughter's test. With each dish he ordered, Qing Liqui would make a mental check, and her little mouth would also turn up a bit more. Xiao Qingzhe closed the menu, glanced at Qing Jinglan, and told the manager, please make the beef broth a little more sour, the child's mother likes sour flavors, especially vinegar. Qing Jinglan pinched the hand that was holding hers under the table, and told the manager, just make it normal, not too sour, I don't particularly like vinegar. Qing Liqui looked at her mom in some confusion. She knew best what her mom liked to eat. Mom, aren't you the one who likes vinegar the most, adding some to everything you eat? Qing Jinglan, Xiao Qingzhe coughed lightly and cleared his throat to stop himself from laughing out loud because of what his daughter said. Qing Liqui looked at her coughing father and asked, Daddy, don't you like to be jealous? Xiao Qingzhe coughed again and answered his daughter seriously, Daddy likes being jealous very much. The hand under his desk was probably going to be uncontrollable after this meal. Qing Liqui's laughter sounded like silver bells. I also like being jealous. I like eating sour and sweet things, not spicy things. The restaurant manager felt that after he left this private room, his thighs would also be uncontrollable. They were all pinched by him trying not to laugh. It turned out that this was a family of 3 who liked being jealous. They were really too cute. On the way back, Qing Liqui was not sleepy because of her full stomach. On the contrary, she was very energetic. She lay on her mother's lap and told her parents what she had learned today at kindergarten and talked about how she wanted to celebrate her birthday party this year. She had already figured out how to design the invitation cards and would show them to her mother after she finished making them. Qing Jinglan leaned down and kissed her chubby little face. Our little girl is so capable. Qing Liqui held her mother's face and kissed her too. Because I have a very capable mother. Mother and daughter laughed together with their heads leaning against each other. Xiao Qingzhe held the steering wheel with both hands, glancing at the rearview mirror from time to time. The corners of his mouth were raised with a smile, and his pitch-black eyes were filled with endless tenderness. In the lights of thousands of households, this was just the most ordinary one, but the most touching ones were often these seemingly ordinary moments. The car pulled into the yard. Qing Liqui got up from her mother's lap and said, We're home. Mom, is Dad sleeping at our house tonight? Xiao Qingzhe turned around to look. Qing Jinglan tidied her clothes for her and said, Dad has to go back for work, so he can't sleep here. Xiao Qingzhe's expectations fell through, but he was not disappointed either. Things had to be taken one step at a time, and he was already very satisfied with the current situation. Qing Liqui clung to the back of the driver's seat and leaned over to her father. Dad works so hard. You still have to work at night. Xiao Qingzhe reached out and picked his little princess from the back seat to the front. Dad is not tired. Dad likes working. Qing Liqui lay on her father's shoulder and hugged her father's neck. Dad, if you want to sleep here in the future, you don't need to climb over the wall or dig tunnels. You can just dress up as Snail Girl again like in the morning. I can lend you my doll's wig. Xiao Qingzhe didn't know how to describe his current mood. In short, it was very complicated, and 1 or 2 simple words were not enough to express it. Qing Jinglan got out of the car first, afraid that she would burst out laughing in the car. This morning, her mother had only sent her a photo. As for what happened, her mother told her to ask him. So it turned out that her daughter had set him up. No, she should say her daughter had saved him. Before going to bed, Qing Jinglan received his message on time, Xiaomiao, good night. She looked at the message for a long time without putting her phone down immediately like usual. She replied, good night, Snail, sir. When Xiao Qingzhe saw her reply, he suddenly felt that dressing up as Snail Girl was also quite good. It could make his daughter happy, please his mother-in-law, and most importantly, win her heart. There was nothing more cost-effective than this. Visit no v3lb/n.cm for new OVL. That night, both Qing Jinlan and Qing Liqui slept very soundly and dreamed sweet dreams. However, not many people in the Xiao family slept that night. Wu Jingyao had originally arranged everything and planned to take preemptive action. She was going to release several waves of rumors on the internet at 10 p.m. when traffic was highest. She had already written the titles and content of the rumors. The titles were very eye-catching. The first wave was the big reveal of the reason why Xiao Qingzhe became the abandoned heir of the Xiao family. He is not a descendant of the Xiaos. The second wave was the origin of the grudge between the Xiao and Qing families. The third wave was the big reveal of the relationship between Xiao Qingzhe and the second young miss of the Qing family. Wu Jingyao naturally knew that Xiao Qingzhe was Xiao Yunjing's grandson. There was no mistake at all. Otherwise, Xiao Yunjing would not have let him return to the Xiao family, let alone take over the Xiao group. But nowadays, no one cared about the truth of things. The more outrageous and sensational, the more easily people would believe it. These 3 consecutive waves of rumors would surely set off huge waves. By then, Xiao Qingzhe would truly experience the meaning of vicious rumors, even if he presented substantive evidence. People would have preconceived notions. He, that girl from the Qing family, and their daughter would always live under gossip and rumors. Just when it was 10 p.m., those big verses who were supposed to post fell silent collectively. None of the prepared content was posted. Wu Jingyao asked Qian Huiqing, and Qian Huiqing said he couldn't contact anyone now. His phone and WeChat had all been blocked. Someone must have intervened to stop this. Wu Jingyao tightly clutched her phone, unable to control her emotions at all. She really wanted to smash the phone on the ground. She had done this very covertly. It was impossible for anyone to find out, and yet actions were taken so quickly. There was a knock on the door. The maid outside the door shouted, "Madam, the old master wants you to go to the study." Wu Jingyao took a few deep breaths to calm herself before replying to the maid, "Got it." She tidied up her expression in front of the mirror and put on the most perfect smile before going to the study. But she didn't expect that there would be someone else in the study. That bastard was sitting leisurely on the sofa looking at her. So he was the one who had stopped this. Now he had run over here to tattle. Wu Jingyao quickly thought of a countermeasure. She would simply deny it. All of this was done by Qian Huiqing's people, and it would not implicate her side. Wu Jingyao had made up her mind, but just after taking 2 steps into the study, Xiao Yunjing dumped a stack of photos and documents on her out of the blue. Xiao Yunjing's face was livid, and his cloudy eyeballs looked like they were about to pop out of their sockets. "Explain this to me. What is going on?" When Wu Jingyao saw the photos, she could still remain calm. She was just having coffee with Qian Huiqing. It didn't prove anything. But when she saw those documents, she panicked completely. Her hands trembled as she held the documents. She first wanted to deny it, but seeing Xiao Yunjing's icy stare, she couldn't help but shudder. Tears flowed out, from fear and from acting. She knew what Xiao Yunjing liked to see most. Her voice was intermittent and aggrieved. "These were all things before I met you. Who told me not to meet you earlier? The mistakes made when I was young, and now you're settling accounts with me. What do you want me to do, relive everything again? Aren't you forcing me to die like this? Since separating from him, I have never contacted him again. I also just found out that Qianjing is my son. How would I know things would coincide so perfectly that he became your secretary? Qian Huiqing is now using this to blackmail me for money. I went to see him because I wanted to discuss this matter with him. After following you for so many years, don't you know what kind of person I am? Xiao Yunjing, don't you have any trust in me at all?" Xiao Yunjing's eyes flickered a few times, and his chest heaved rapidly, but he didn't say any more hurtful words in the end. Xiao Qingzhe even wanted to applaud this impressive performance by his step-grandmother. If she went into acting, she could win all kinds of acting awards. As for the hidden relationship between Wu Jingyao and Qianzheng, it was something he discovered by accident. Ever since little Liqui found the Xiao family, he had been guarding against any actions from Wu Jingyao's side and had people keeping an eye on her. His subordinates would report her activities to him every day. He noticed that her meetings with Qianzheng's wife were too frequent. He knew Qianzheng had always been doing things for her, so it was normal for Qianzheng's wife to curry favor with her. But in the photos, Qianzheng's youngest son was present every time they met. Shopping, all purchase invoices, even for buying brand-name watches and luxury cars, were paid by Wu Jingyao. Wu Jingyao was never a generous person. She had always looked down on her subordinates. Only others tried to curry her favor and snatched at giving her invoices. Why could Qian Zheng's wife and son receive such preferential treatment from her? Xiao Qingzhe felt something was off, so he casually looked into it. Some things really couldn't stand up to investigation. All he could say was that his grandfather was really old and had been kept in the dark by his pillowside companion for so many years without noticing anything. Wu Jingyao had arranged for Qianjing to be by the old gentleman's side for so many years that he had become the most trusted right-hand man of the old gentleman. It would be fair to say that he was the old gentleman's spokesperson. His intention was none other than to have Xiao Zhongting inherit the company so that Xiao Zhongting could be an emperor who only knew how to eat, drink and have fun, while Qianjing would be the real person in power behind the scenes at Xiaoshi. Xiao Qingzi didn't want to listen to Wu Jingyao continue her act. He directly took out his phone and played a recording that Qianjing had given him. It was a phone conversation between Wu Jingyao and Qianjing before, discussing the plan for Xiaoshi after taking Xiao Qingzi down completely. She even said for Qianjing to think of a way that could make the old man die unconsciously and without a trace. After all, the old man had so many underlying diseases. In the recording, Wu Jingyao's voice was clear and unambiguous. Even if she wanted to deny it, she couldn't. Xiao Qingzi looked at Wu Jingyao and said, "If you want to listen, I have a lot more here, but I'm afraid that listening to them would be too much for the old gentleman's heart to bear, so I won't play them for now." Wu Jingyao completely collapsed in the chair. What shocked her wasn't the content of the recording, but that this recording was given to Xiao Qingzi by Qianjing, her own son. Back then, she and Qian Huiqing only held a simple banquet and didn't get a marriage certificate. After she got together with Xiao Yunjing, she completely cut off contact with Qian Huiqing. It wasn't until Qianjing graduated from college that she recognized him again. Compared to how she treated Xiao Zhongting, because she felt guilty and also because Qianjing was much more capable and smarter than Xiao Zhongting, she had devoted all her effort these years to him. But what she got in return was that he sold her out with his own hands. Wu Jingyao gazed blankly at Xiao Qingzi and murmured, "Why?" Xiao Qingzi sneered contemptuously, "The money he skimmed from the company in these years is enough for him to live idly for generations. Although he did it cleverly, it wouldn't be too difficult to find evidence if there was a thorough investigation. According to the sentencing standards for the crime of infringement of duties, he would at least get 10 years in jail. For him, selling out his own mother versus going to jail, the choice was not difficult at all. He couldn't even hold out for 2 days before he cracked. To him, you were probably just a money-making tool." Tears rolled down Wu Jingyao's cheeks. These tears were probably genuine tears. Xiao Yunjing leaned back in his chair with eyes closed, not saying a word, aging more than 10 years in an instant. This was probably retribution. Although he didn't want to believe it, he had no choice but to believe it. The outside world thought that the estrangement between the Xiao family and the Qing family was due to business matters, but that was not the case. Besides Yin Manqing, there was another person in the car when she got into the accident: Qing Boyi, Qing Jinlan's young uncle, Qing Jinchuan's most beloved uncle. Yin Manqing died on the spot, while Qing Boyi passed away the next day after being sent to the hospital. At that time, the two families had suppressed the news so the outside world didn't know their accident was the same one. Back then, when Yin Manqing found out about his affair with Wu Jingyao, she demanded a divorce without hesitation. Xiao Yunjing absolutely did not want a divorce. He had no intention of doing anything with Wu Jingyao. He just couldn't stand Yin Manqing's overbearing personality and wanted to occasionally enjoy some tender affection from Wu Jingyao. At that time, Xiaoshi was at the most critical stage of development. Yin Manqing had absolute influence in the company. More than half of the company's backbone was recruited and cultivated by her. If they divorced, aside from taking away a portion of the company's equity, she might also take away many people with her. The blow to the company would be devastating. There was no way he would let this divorce happen. But Yin Manqing was determined to divorce. The lawyer she hired was Qing Boyi. Yin Manqing and Qing Boyi were classmates. Yin Manqing and Qing Boyi had always competed for first and second place in class. Both had relatively strong personalities, so they didn't get along too well. As a poor student who always ranked near the bottom, he originally didn't have many opportunities to interact with Yin Manqing. But when they were sent to the countryside together during the Down to the Countryside movement, he pursued Yin Manqing for 2 years before she finally agreed. Not long after they got together, they got married. He still remembered vividly to this day when Qing Boyi came rushing in, drenched in sweat, on the night before their wedding. At that moment, he knew that this man liked Yin Manqing, but he was just one step too late. He knew Ching Bui's importance in Yin Manqing's heart. She admired him, although she never said it outright, but it was apparent from the way she looked at him. He was jealous of Ching Bui, of course, but he had no grounds for this jealousy since Yin Manqing had married him after all. So when he found out that Yin Manqing had hired Ching Bui to handle their divorce, he was furious. At that time, Yin Manqing only had two demands: first, custody of their son, second, half of the company's equity. Based on her personality, once she decided on something, she would stop at nothing to accomplish it. So Xiao Yunjing was afraid. During that time, Yin Manqing and Ching Bui often worked late into the night in his office, so he wanted to take advantage of this. Besides being a lawyer, Ching Bui was also a university professor. For a man and a woman to come out of a house together early in the morning was ambiguous enough. Compared to verbal explanations, people would believe more readily what they saw in photos. So Xiao Yunjing arranged for someone to tail Yin Manqing and Ching Bui. The day of the accident, Yin Manqing discovered the person tailing her and drove fast, trying to shake off the car chasing her, which resulted in a crash with an oncoming truck. The accident claimed 2 lives. At first, Xiao Yunjing still felt a little guilty over the deaths of Yin Manqing and Ching Bui. He only wanted to use photos to negotiate terms with Yin Manqing and didn't intend for her and Ching Bui to die. During that time, he waited downstairs at Ching Bui's office building for a whole night. All sorts of dirty, vicious thoughts went through his mind. He even considered just rushing upstairs, but held back in the end. He didn't want things with Yin Manqing to get too ugly. He only wanted to get some leverage so he could negotiate terms with her. At that time, for a university professor to be entangled with a married woman, even without substantive evidence, some ambiguous photos could easily ruin that professor's career if it was brought to the school's attention. Yin Manqing would definitely not want to ruin Ching Bui's career because of herself. As long as she didn't divorce him, he could pretend nothing had happened. Although he knew nothing had happened between them, he still understood Yin Manqing. While still married, she wouldn't do anything with another man even if she had feelings for him in her heart. But later he began to doubt this conviction. If they really had nothing going on, why were they desperately trying to avoid him? He even went so far as to specifically check the DNA between himself and Xiao Zhangke, and the results did confirm Xiao Zhangke was his biological son. But that still didn't preclude the possibility that something might have happened between Yin Manqing and Ching Bui. The Ching family blamed Xiao Yunjing for Ching Bui's death, while he felt it was Ching Bui who caused the death of his wife. If not for Ching Bui constantly egging Yin Manqing on, she wouldn't have been so determined to divorce. If she didn't push for divorce, none of this would have happened. Only now did he realize he was the one in the wrong. He had failed Yin Manqing's feelings and went back on the vows he made to her on their wedding night to be lifelong partners. With her proud personality, once she found out about his affair with Wu Jingyao, there was no way she could continue to be with him. It was he who killed her, and no one else was to blame. Perhaps there really was some kind of karmic causation. Sometimes when he saw Xiao Qingze's methods and wristwork in handling company affairs, he felt blood ties were truly mystifying. Although Xiao Qingze had never even seen his grandmother's face, his style and capabilities were very similar to hers. So sometimes he really wanted to see Xiao Qingze, yet also feared seeing him. If Xiao Qingze was sent by Yin Manqing to take revenge on him, then he accepted it now. Let everything be restored to its rightful place. After all these years of nightly nightmares, he was truly exhausted. The next day, Xiaoshi released several major announcements in succession. The first was that old Mr. Xiao's executive assistant Qianjing had been fired by the company and immediately stripped of all positions and access in the company. The second article stated that all shares under Ms. Wu Jingyao and Mr. Xiao Zhongting would be transferred to Mr. Xiao Qingze's name and they would withdraw from the board of directors. The third article stated that starting today, Mr. Xiao Yunjing would fully withdraw from the board of directors and no longer participate in any of the company's operations and management. Mr. Xiao Qingze would take over Xiao Group again and serve as the group's chairman. From today onwards, there would be no more little Xiao chairman or old Xiao chairman in Xiao Group. There would only be one chairman Xiao. Qing Jinlan only found out about what happened in Xiao Group that afternoon when her brother Qing Jinchuan gave her the news. He also attached a voice message. His tone was a bit disdainful but also a little happy. Of course, he would never admit to that tiny bit of happiness. He's decent enough. In just a few months, he accomplished this much. At least it shows he's not just a freeloader. After deleting and revising her message to Qing Jinchuan several times, Qing Jinlan still didn't know how to reply. Then Qing Jinchuan sent another message. He called me just now and said he wants to partner with our family to develop that plot of land in Nanjing. As the first collaborative project between the Cheng and Xiao families to break the ice, his moves are quite swift. He just finished his power struggle this morning, and by the afternoon he's already scheming with our family. I haven't even agreed yet and he's calling it a first launch project. Looks like he already has second and third launches in the works. He really intends to latch onto our Qing family, doesn't he? Qing Jinlan decided not to reply for the moment, because her brother clearly wasn't done speaking. She would reply after he finished. Sure enough, not even a second later, another voice message came in. But his idea is not bad. He said we could build an amusement park. I was also thinking about how to utilize that plot of land in Nanjing. An amusement park sounds great. It can be a gift for my little Lucci. We'll just consider it a present for little Lucci. But even if we really partner up, I still need to think carefully about how to collaborate. I absolutely can't let him lead me by the nose. Qing Jinlan replied, he definitely can't lead you by the nose. Only a beauty can lead away your nose. Qing Jinchuan hee-heed twice. My sister knows me well. Qing Jinlan pondered if she should send a message to ask about his situation over there. She had just tapped on his WeChat avatar when a red dot appeared over it. Want to have dinner together tonight? Qing Jinlan was half amused, half exasperated. Are we dining buddies? All we do is eat. Of course we're not dining buddies. I have no work tonight. As my girlfriend, you can exercise all your privileges over me. I'm just afraid you won't exercise them. Qing Jinlan gave him a one-word reply. Scram. Xiao Qingzi returned to the original topic. How about Pine Grove Apartments tonight? I just learned a few sweet and sour dishes I want you and little Liqui to try. Qing Jinlan asked him, have you resolved everything with your company? It's resolved, so I'm anxious to find you and little Liqui to taste test my cooking. I also want to formally meet your parents soon and cook them a meal. Qing Jinlan sent another one-word reply. Scram. Xiao Qingzi drove his SUV over to pick her up first before going to fetch little Liqui from school. Liqui leaned against her dad. She looked at her dad, then her mom. Dad, you and Mom have been dating a lot lately. Xiao Qingzi's expression changed slightly. He looked at her cautiously. Doesn't little Liqui like it when Dad dates Mom? Qing Jinlan was also watching her daughter. She didn't seem to be in high spirits today. Jinlan took her little hand. Did something unhappy happen today, little Liqui? Liqui shook her head. I'm not unhappy. I also want Dad and Mom to date more. But won't I become a light bulb if I'm always there when you date? A really bright one? Liqui had learned a new word today from her classmate's light bulb. She thought carefully about its meaning. Wasn't she the light bulb? She wanted her parents to date because it made her mom happy. She also wanted to be there when her parents dated because she didn't want to be apart from her mom. But wouldn't that make her a light bulb? She didn't like being a light bulb, but she also didn't want to interfere with her parents' dates. Xiao Qingzi gently said, little Liqui could never be a light bulb. You're a mini matchmaker for Dad and Mom. Think about it. Weren't you the one who brought Dad to Mom? If you hadn't come looking for Dad, Dad might never have found Mom. Also, didn't you teach Dad how to make Mom happy? If you hadn't been Dad's little teacher, Mom would still ignore Dad now. And remember yesterday morning? Wasn't it you who cleverly dressed Dad up as Lady Snail so Grandma wouldn't discover him? Without little Liqui there, Dad would have been doomed. Dad and Mom must have you there when we date, otherwise I won't know how to placate Mom if I make her angry. As she listened to her dad's words, Liqui's smile grew wider and wider. So I'm actually so amazing. I'm a mini matchmaker for Dad and Mom, not a light bulb. Qing Jinlan ruffled her hair. With so much hair, how could our little Liqui possibly be a light bulb? Liqui rubbed her head against her mom's palm. Mom, then you and Dad don't need to date once a day. Date 3 times a day instead. I'll be the best mini matchmaker ever and make sure Mom is happy every date. Qing Jinlan flicked her forehead lightly. Don't you need to go to school anymore? Dating 3 times a day. Oh right, Liqui stuck out her tongue. Then date once a day on school days. And date 3 times a day on weekends. I think this arrangement by little Liqui is simply perfect. Xiao Qingzi lifted the little princess high up. Their little princess was no mere woolen coat, she was a mink coat. Liqui giggled. I think so too. What does Mom think? Qing Jinlan pretended to scold the duo, one bigger child and one smaller child, both equally silly. When they arrived at Pine Grove Apartments, Liqui worked on her birthday party invitations in the living room while her parents made delicious food for her in the kitchen. Hearing the doorbell ring, Liqui put down her paintbrush and scampered to open the door. She opened the door to see a beautiful and kind-looking Granny. Liqui smiled brightly and asked, Granny, did you need something? Seeing this adorable little girl, LV Siwei's heart almost melted away. How could there be such a cute little girl in the world? She secretly signaled to Xiao Qingzi, who had walked over. Little girl, Granny went to the wrong floor. Granny should be up one more floor. Sorry about that, little girl, for disturbing you. LV Siwei had come today from her hometown, firstly because of what happened in the Xiao family today, and secondly because she wanted to check on her son's progress pursuing his wife. That was of course the main reason. Nowadays she dreamed every night about this cute little girl, longing intensely to see her. She figured with her son's cold personality, he might not even be holding the girl's hand yet at this point. Who would have thought her son would act so boldly and swiftly this time, already bringing the girl home with him? She had come at the wrong time today. If she had known better, she would have called first. Her son wasn't a lonely bachelor anymore. She couldn't just directly come over now like before. From now on, she would need to call ahead every time she visited. She couldn't disturb her son's dates. She had to leave quickly. Liqui looked back at her dad, then turned to look at LV Siwei again. She even took a step closer to her. Granny, are you my dad's mom? LV Siwei was completely shocked. She bent down to meet Liqui's eyes directly. Sweetie, how did you know? This was the little girl's first time seeing her, right? How did she know she was her dad's mom? Because Dad looks at Granny very gently, the same way he looks at me and Mom. So Granny must be someone very close to Dad. Granny seems around the same age as my grandma. So you must be Dad's mom. LV Siwei stared with mouth agape. This little sweetie must be a child prodigy. Qing Liqui was very curious about her father's mother, so she introduced herself to LV Siwei. Grandma, hello, my name is Qing Liqui, you can call me Little Liqui. LV Siwei's face lit up like a blossoming flower, her voice soft and gentle. Hello Little Liqui, Grandma is called LV Siwei, I'm Xiao Qingzi's mother. Qing Liqui really liked this grandma's smile. Grandma, you look so pretty when you smile. LV Siwei's heart had already melted into a marshmallow. Our little darling Liqui looks even prettier when she smiles, prettier than the loveliest foreign doll. The crescent moon shape of Qing Liqui's eyes deepened. Grandma was Dad's mom, but Grandma was so different from Dad. Grandma was so lively. Qing Jinlan heard the voices and walked out of the kitchen. Xiao Qingzi examined her expression closely, but didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. He took her hand and said to LV Siwei, Mom, this is Jinlan, Liqui's mother. He paused and glanced at Jinlan again before continuing, my girlfriend. Hello Auntie, I'm Qing Jinlan. Qing Jinlan slipped her hand out of Xiao Qingzi's and greeted LV Siwei naturally. LV Siwei suppressed her excitement, mainly afraid of scaring the young lady. She knew her son had good taste, the girl he liked must be the best. Jinlan, hello. I knew Liqui was so pretty, she must take after her beautiful mother. Qing Liqui loved when people said she looked like her mother. She held her mother's hand, her soft voice full of pride. Grandma, my mom isn't just pretty, she's also very smart and runs a big hotel. LV Siwei's gaze softened even more. Is Mom that capable? Then our little darling Liqui must also be very smart and capable. Qing Liqui replied seriously to LV Siwei, Grandma, I'm only 6 this year, not as capable as Mom yet, but when I grow up, I can be as capable as Mom. Listening to the soft voice of the little darling, LV Siwei wished she could lavish her with the best words in the world. In all my years Grandma has never met a 6-year-old as capable and adorable as little Liqui. Qing Liqui was embarrassed by LV Siwei's praises. She responded in a soft voice, Thank you Grandma, then turned and nestled into her mother's arms. Qing Jinlan smiled and stroked her daughter's hair. The old lady thought differently than her. Based on Xiao Qingzi's personality, she had assumed he grew up in a strict family environment, but with such a lively old lady at home, the atmosphere was probably very cheerful. His personality was likely innate, unrelated to his family environment. LV Siwei clapped her hands, remembering something important she had almost forgotten about in her excitement. Fortunately she had prepared in advance so they weren't left empty-handed. "Liqui, wait a moment for Grandma, I have something to give you." LV Siwei had originally wanted Xiao Qingzhe to fetch it, but seeing how he was gazing at the young lady, she'd better go grab it herself. Her son probably had things he wanted to say to the girl. LV Siwei went to her bedroom. Qing Liqui needed the bathroom, so Qing Jinlan took her and waited outside the door for her to finish. Xiao Qingzhe returned to the kitchen to check on the pots, then walked over to Qing Jinlan, held her hand and said softly, "I didn't know my mom would come over today. She probably saw the news and found out about the company, got worried about me and came over." He was afraid she would think he was playing games, introducing them at home first so his mom could corner her. Qing Jinlan looked at him. Had Auntie met Liqui and I before? She could tell this wasn't the old lady's first time seeing them. "That time you came to the airport to pick me up, Mom had also come to see me and happened to run into you all." I could only tell her the truth. Xiao Qingzhe tilted his chin at the feather dusters on the cabinet in the corner of the living room. "That night she gave me a good whacking with those feather dusters. I never got hit with feather dusters as a kid, didn't expect to experience their might at this age." Qing Jinlan imagined the scene and the corners of her lips turned up slightly as she tenderly scolded him. "You deserved it." He needed her hand. "There was another time I was video chatting with Liqui. My mom overheard Liqui's voice but didn't appear on video. She told me that without your consent, she wouldn't appear before Liqui." "Oh." Qing Jinlan simply responded with one word. Xiao Qingzhe leaned down to meet her eyes. "Not mad?" Qing Jinlan glanced at him. "Am I that easily angered? Auntie is very sweet, much more so than you." Xiao Qingzhe laughed softly, lowering his voice even more. "If you want me to be sweet, I can be too, sweet only to you." Qing Jinlan had already lifted her foot, about to step on his shoe, when Qing Liqui came out of the bathroom. "Mom, I'm done, washed my hands too. The sink in there is small, just right for me to bend over to wash, same as home." "Mom, look, did I wash clean?" "You washed very clean, our Liqui is so capable." Qing Jinlan replied her daughter while continuing to lower her raised foot, stepping right on his shoe and grinding down hard. Qing Liqui heard a muffled ugh, but before she could determine the source, LV Siwei came out carrying a large box. Xiao Qingzhe raised his eyebrows. He knew this was likely the welcome gift she had prepared, just not sure when she had gotten it ready. Meeting her son's girlfriend and granddaughter for the first time, LV Siwei worried she hadn't prepared enough gifts. This was just part of it, there was more at home. She just hadn't expected to meet them on this impromptu visit today and had come rushed and empty-handed. LV Siwei first took out a thick stack of red envelopes and held them out to Qing Liqui with both hands. "Darling, these red envelopes are for you." Qing Liqui didn't reach for them. "Why is Grandma giving me so many red envelopes?" LV Siwei explained, "These are New Year's red envelopes from Grandma to make up for the 6 years you've been alive, one for each year." Qing Liqui looked to her mother. Qing Jinlan said, "Since Grandma is giving them to you, go ahead and take them. Remember to thank her." "Thank you, Grandma." Qing Liqui accepted the red envelopes with both hands. "But I don't have any gifts prepared for Grandma." Qing Jinlan told her, "Next time you see Grandma you can make up for it." Qing Liqui nodded, and told LV Siwei, "Grandma, next time I see you I'll give you lots of gifts too." LV Siwei beamed, agreeing there would be a next time. She took out 6 jewelry boxes, makeup birthday gifts, then 6 beautiful dresses as makeup Children's Day gifts. The gifts covered the coffee table and sofa. Qing Liqui loved pretty dresses and couldn't wait to go try them on. Xiao Qingzhe accompanied her to the wardrobe room. LV Siwei took out a thick red envelope and small box. She opened the box. Inside was a jade bracelet. "Jinlan, I got this at an auction with Qingze several years ago. When I bid on it, I was thinking of giving it as a welcome gift when he someday brought a girlfriend home. I almost thought this gift would never be given out, didn't expect to be able to fulfill this wish today. Although this is our first meeting, I feel a special connection with you. There is one jade character in your name, this must be fate. This bracelet was destined for you." As Fei Zuohui liked jade, Qing Jinlan was quite knowledgeable about it. This kind of jadeite bracelet would not be cheap, worth at least the price of a house. Qing Jinlan declined. "Auntie, I can't accept this." LV Siwei held her hand. "This is what Aunt should give you. Don't feel burdened at all. He never told me about what happened between you two before, but I know he must have done something very wrong, that's why you chose to separate from him. Over these years, he didn't say it out loud, but I could tell he always had you in his heart and never got over you. You're even willing to give him another chance. Aunt is very grateful. To get to the root of it, it was Aunt's fault. He was my first child, I had no experience and didn't raise him well. He didn't inherit any of my personality at all. He doesn't know how to speak, his face is as cold as a frozen dumpling all day long, but he likes you so much in his heart, yet he still acts all arrogant and aloof, he doesn't say what's on his mind no matter how urgent it is, it's maddening. If only he had inherited my excellent genes of not being able to keep anything in my heart and saying it outright, you two probably wouldn't have gone through so many ups and downs. Consider this my compensation, you have to forgive Aunt for this. Qing Jinlan was about to refuse, but hearing the last part, a smile appeared on her face. This is really a son badmouthing his own mother, not leaving any face. Seeing Qing Jinlan smile, LV Siwei also smiled. Without another word, she held her hand and put on the bracelet. The green bracelet and her slender wrist looked so good together. LV Siwei patted the back of her hand, silly girl, you should keep the gift. As for him, you still need to deal with him the way you were going to. You can't forgive a man too easily, you have to make him truly realize his mistakes. Qing Jinlan softly breathed out an "Oh, I understand, thank you auntie." The bracelet had been accepted, LV Siwei smiled with eyes narrowed, extremely delighted. At dinner, she sat next to her little granddaughter, watching as the little darling obediently ate mouthful by mouthful. Unknowingly, she also ate an extra bowl of rice herself. Children are such a joy, so well-behaved, polite, smart and able to eat by themselves with good posture and manners. The mother and elders must have spent endless effort and energy. Her own son deserves to marry into their family and work hard for them. After dinner, Xiao Qingze was responsible for washing dishes and cleaning up the table. Qing Liqui pulled her mother and grandma to show them the birthday invitation she designed. As Qing Liqui was talking, she suddenly remembered something. Grandma, what did Dad look like when he was 6? I've seen what Mom looked like at 6, but not Dad. Wait a moment, Grandma will grab the photo album for you. Not just 6, I even have baby pictures of your dad. LV Siwei hurried off to the study. She had the foresight to keep an album here too. Hearing LV Siwei's words, Xiao Qingze came out from the kitchen and called to Qing Jinlan, "Meow meow, come help me tie this apron. My hands are wet so I can't tie it myself." Photos from before 3 years old were black history that absolutely could not be seen. Qing Jinlan knew he was trying to distract her, but she didn't point it out. The album wasn't going anywhere, if she didn't see it now she could see it later. The more anxious he was, the more worth watching it would be. When LV Siwei came out and saw Qing Jinlan wasn't there, she guessed her son had called her away. She first took out the photos of her son at 6 to show her granddaughter. They could look at the rest together after her mom came back. Black history is more fun viewed together. Looking at the dad in the photos, his skin so fair, lips so red, eyes so big, pupils so dark. Qing Liqui craned her neck to look at Grandma. Dad was so pretty at 6. Even prettier than Shinchuki. LV Siwei flicked her little nose, no matter how pretty he was, he's not as pretty as little Liqui. Out of pure curiosity, Qing Liqui asked again, Grandma, with Dad being so good-looking, were there a lot of little girls who liked him in school? Discover NW Chapter SNN0EL by.com. The sweet, crisp voice carried into the kitchen. Xiao Qingze stopped washing dishes, while Qing Jinlan's hands still for a moment before calmly continuing to tie his apron. LV Siwei very firmly shook her head, speaking a bit louder, answering Qing Liqui while also addressing the people in the kitchen. No, he frowned all day long, scaring away any little girls. Who would still like him? Qing Liqui asked again, none at all? LV Siwei was very certain, not one. Qing Liqui proudly puffed out her little chest. My mom had a lot of people who liked her. Grandma said many little boys gave gifts to her. Once when Grandma went to a parent-teacher meeting, there was one especially naughty boy who directly called my grandma mother-in-law. Isn't that so funny? After speaking, she burst into giggles. LV Siwei laughed so hard she was out of breath, hugging the little darling onto her lap and into her arms. She was nearly laughing herself to tears. How could there be such an adorable little treasure in the world? In the kitchen, the air froze for a moment. Xiao Qingze turned to look at Qing Jinlan. Qing Jinlan had tied his apron into a tight knot and walked calmly out of the kitchen, acting as if she saw nothing. The gaze on her back blazed into fire, but she pretended not to notice. It must be said that photo albums are a good thing. As it turned out, Qing Jinlan didn't like to smile since he was little. Even when he was just born, he was like a little adult, with an indifferent expression on his chubby face. Although it was not cute, it was a little cute in that aloofness. Xiao Qingze's mouth corner involuntarily turned up. Dad was so cute as a baby, Qing Liqui said as she reached out and touched the chubby little face in the photo. He would have been even cuter if he smiled. She continued flipping through the photo album. Under the bright lights, the air suddenly froze. Qing Liqui pointed to a photo and uncertainly asked LV Siwei, "Grandma, is this Dad?" LV Siwei suppressed her laugh and nodded. Xiao Qingze picked a grape from the fruit platter and put it in his mouth, slowly and carefully chewing it, not wanting his smile to be too obvious. His slick black hair was reluctantly pulled into two little pigtails tied with big red bows. His neat bangs covered his full forehead. The red dot in the center of his eyebrows stood out vibrantly and pleasingly against his fair skin. The red cheongsam was slit open all the way up to the thigh, revealing two chubby little legs. With such a cute outfit, his small face was still extremely serious. He stared at the camera impatiently, the contrast was obvious, making it difficult not to laugh. Qing Liqui first covered her mouth and chuckled softly, then later she couldn't hold it in anymore. Her clear laughter filled the living room as she called to the kitchen, "Dad, you looked so pretty in a cheongsam." Xiao Yunjing poked his head out from the kitchen and looked at someone's drooping mouth corners. Feeling moved, since this could make her so happy, he simply went with it, "Little Liqui, if you keep turning the pages, you'll find even prettier looks of Dad." Before Xiao Qingze turned 3, LV Siwei enjoyed dressing him up as a little girl for a period of time. As a baby, he neither liked to laugh nor cry. Every day after eating his fill, he would just lie in bed or sit in a rocking chair, staring blankly as if in a daze, or seeming to contemplate his 3-year-old life. This baby's days were a little boring, so LV Siwei wanted to find some fun things for him to do. Unfortunately, no matter how she tried, she couldn't change his cold poker face, wasted his good looks. After returning from her dad's house, Qing Liqui slept with a smile still on her face. Her lips in her sleep would murmur indistinctly like a little kitten from time to time, laughing out soft mews, probably dreaming of the pretty sides of Dad. Xiao Qingze squatted by the bed watching his daughter for a long time before leaving. Qing Jinlan sat cross-legged on the sofa reading a notebook. Seeing him come out, she put the notebook down and hooked her pinky with his extended finger, slowly enveloping her whole hand in his palm. "I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. It'll probably be half a month. I have to visit all the major domestic and overseas subsidiaries, so it'll take some time. I'll be back a couple days before Liqui's birthday." Qing Jinlan nodded to show she understood. As the saying goes, the courtier must change with the sovereign. He had just fully taken over his grandfather's position, so he would inevitably have to inspect all the group's subordinate companies. His days probably wouldn't be easy for a while. Xiao Qingze was not very satisfied with her attitude. A day apart felt like 3 autumns. Half a month's time was practically half a lifetime. He hadn't even gotten on the plane yet but already felt the time apart would be hard to endure. She didn't seem to care much that he was going on a business trip. He squeezed the softness in his palm. "Don't you even say you'll miss me?" Qing Jinlan leaned back against the sofa. "I have an important event at the hotel the day after tomorrow that I'll be very busy with the next few days. After it ends, I plan to take Liqui out to play for a few days to escape this deadly hot weather. I probably won't have much time to think of you." Xiao Qingze wondered if he could postpone this business trip. Qing Jinlan saw through his thoughts. "You can't go even if you don't go on the trip. My mom's going too." Xiao Qingze pulled her from the sofa onto his lap. "If I just call her mother-in-law, do you think she won't hit me?" Qing Jinlan lazily draped her arms around his neck, looking at him mockingly. "If you can dress up like in the photo, in a cheongsam, and call her that, I think my mom wouldn't be able to lay a hand on you." If it made his mother-in-law happy, he supposed he could do it. But that wasn't important right now. He bit her ear. "Did a lot of people write you love letters when you were in school?" Qing Jinlan thought seriously about the question and gave a serious answer. "Not a lot, about 1 a day, I guess." Could a sentence explode a beehive? Xiao Qingze didn't know, but a sentence could definitely explode a vat of vinegar. Gasping for breath, she dodged his approaching lips. Grabbing his ear, she asked, "Shouldn't you reflect on why you never wrote me a love letter?" Xiao Qingze was stunned for a second, feeling her question was right on target. Qing Jinlan had just blurted that out in a fluster. Seeing him actually taking it seriously, she quickly took back her words. I'm just kidding, don't write, never write. Love letters were too cheesy, she couldn't stand anything cheesy. Things were good as they were now. Unlike the elusive, unpredictable feeling before, now she could clearly feel his feelings. That was enough. Words could enhance emotions, but ultimately they drifted on paper, illusory. Compared to words, she preferred tangible actions she could see with her eyes. Xiao Qingzi gently brushed her lips. Although my language grades were the worst, I can still write a love letter. I told you not to write. A commanding tone that should have sounded more forceful instead turned into delicate whimpers under his lips. Xiao Qingzi entwined her tongue. Beg me. She wouldn't beg him. Qing Jinlan scratched his bulging neck veins with her nails. Since you want to write, anything less than 1,000 words doesn't count. Whether to write or not was his business. Whether to read it or not was her business. If he wanted to write, then write. Deal. Xiao Qingzi agreed readily. Pressing the back of her head, he eagerly stole the air from her mouth. Qing Jinlan had almost no ability to resist, she could only desperately try to keep up with his pace with the little bit of air he transferred to her. Late at night, the room was left with only the sticky sounds of saliva exchange. You should go. Qing Jinlan pressed down the hand that was wandering up her waist, reminding him in her panting breaths. Xiao Qingzi gripped her hand instead of letting it go, pinning it to the sofa. His hand didn't move again, but his lips grew more ferocious. He knew she definitely wouldn't let him stay tonight, but he was about to go half a month without seeing her. He could only take as much as she allowed in her boundaries. It was late when Xiao Qingzi got home. LV Siwei had long gone to bed. On his bedroom door was a note in his mother's handwriting. Oh. You can actually bear to come back. Not easy. With just a simple sentence, without even punctuation, the sarcasm was strong. Xiao Qingzi took the paper down and folded it into a neat square. Although he felt awkward being teased by his mother about his relationship, the satisfied feeling in his eyes couldn't be concealed. In the next few days, they were both busy. Xiao Qingzi was either in meetings, at banquets, or on a plane. Qing Jinlan had to arrange the following work ahead of time since she was going to take some time off. Her schedule was also full every day. Occasionally, when they had free time, they would exchange a message or two, knowing what the other was doing. Although they were oceans apart, across time zones, their hearts felt closer than ever, as if he was right by her side. Qing Jinlan had just left a banquet at the hotel tonight and was walking to the curb to wait for her driver when someone called out, Qing Jinlan. Qing Jinlan heard someone calling her name. She stopped and looked up from her phone, the corners of her mouth still curled in a faint smile. The person calling her was a black-haired woman who looked somewhat older. Her face was taut from excessive cosmetic procedures and had a harsh look to it. And you are? Qing Jinlan asked politely. She was certain they had never met before. I'm Wu Jingyao, the woman said. Qing Jinlan searched her memory for the name. It sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't quite place where she had heard it. She didn't pay much attention to other people in the Xiao family, so if she had heard the name in passing, it was quickly forgotten. Of course she had no idea who this Wu Jingyao was. The contempt in Wu Jingyao's eyes was unconcealed. I'm Xiao Yinjing's wife, Xiao Qingzi's grandmother. Qing Jinlan could sense the hostility coming from her. She dropped the polite smile and replied coolly, as far as I know, Xiao Qingzi's grandmother was Madame Yin, who passed away many years ago. So there was no need to drop Xiao Qingzi's name and pretend to be some elder relative. To Qing Jinlan, she was just a stranger. Wu Jingyao was left speechless. Before she could say anything else, Qing Jinlan cut her off directly, I'm busy and can't chat. Sorry about that. She gave a slight nod as goodbye, then walked around Wu Jingyao and continued on her way, returning to her phone. She really had no desire to listen to this woman's nonsense. Wu Jingyao watched Qing Jinlan's retreating back, her voice turning vicious. You think Xiao Qingzi is with you just so he can get back at your Qing family and swallow you up whole? It's your uncle who was having an affair with his grandmother Yin Manqing. They wanted to elope together but got into a car accident that killed his grandmother. Qing Jinlan turned back around. Wu Jingyao gave a cold laugh. Don't believe me? Just you wait. One day he will destroy your Qing family. He's ruthless and scheming. You think he loves you? How wrong you are. All he will bring you is ruin. Qing Jinlan looked Wu Jingyao up and down. Mrs. Wu, coming to a hotel at this time, are you getting a divorce or has the Xiao family kicked you out? You. Wu Jingyao pointed a finger at her. Qing Jinlan had just taken a random guess, but it seemed she had hit the mark, judging from Wu Jingyao's reaction. She smiled mockingly. So mind your own business. Our affairs are none of your concern. As for adulterous relationships, I believe you are the one who intruded into someone else's marriage and had an affair with a married man. You are hardly in a position to judge others when you have committed the same acts. Think about whether you even have the right to say those things before you open your mouth. Visit no.v3lb/n.cm for new OVL. Wu Jingyao was so angry her heavily powdered face turned red under its thick layer of makeup. But she had no retort against Qing Jinlan. It was true that Xiao Yunjing wanted a divorce. Wu Jingyao had moved out to show she had backbone, but more so because she wanted to play hard to get. However, Xiao Yunjing was determined to divorce her and didn't care whether she lived or died. Xiao Zhangke didn't know what had happened between his parents. He couldn't understand why two people their age would be getting divorced. He kept shuttling back and forth, trying to persuade them to reconcile. Of course Xiao Zhangke didn't want them to split up. With his shares in the Xiao Corporation gone, if his mother divorced his father too, how would he keep his foothold there? How would he get money to support all his mistresses? But divorce was no longer Wu Jingyao's decision to make. All she could do now was hire the best legal team possible to win a decent settlement in the division of assets, but that would be difficult. She knew Xiao Qingze had recordings that left her almost no room to turn things around. Running into Qing Jinlan today, she had wanted to cause problems for Xiao Qingze, but instead ended up humiliating herself. As soon as Qing Jinlan got into the car, she received an overseas call from Xiao Qingze. She answered and lazily asked, "Are you having me followed, or keeping tabs on Wu Jingyao?" He had messaged her earlier saying his meeting still had over half an hour to go. Now this urgent call could only mean he had received some news on his end. Xiao Qingze paused. He hadn't expected her to be so perceptive and figure out his reason for calling before he even said anything. Following Wu Jingyao, he admitted, to prevent any other tricks from her. Oh. Qing Jinlan wedged the phone between her ear and shoulder, then reached up to remove the hairpin from her updo. Her inky black tresses tumbled down over her shoulders. She ran her fingers through the strands in a rough comb, then settled back against the seat. The wine reception hadn't been tiring, but days of intense work had left her nerves strained. What did she say to you? Xiao Qingze knew Wu Jingyao's words were unlikely to be pleasant. Qing Jinlan gave him a summary of what Wu Jingyao had said, including the claim that he was with Qing Jinlan to get revenge on the Qing family and swallow them up. Do you believe what she said? Maybe it was Xiao Qingze's imagination, but with him unable to see her expression, her tone sounded a little distant. Qing Jinlan turned to look out at the passing cars and pedestrians, her attention still focused on the phone. You called so urgently just to explain to me, so I'm waiting for your explanation. It was as if Xiao Qingze sensed something. He asked tentatively, if I explain, you'll believe me? Really? What's with the really? Of course I'll believe your words over hers. The phone went silent, the only sound their breathing. Qing Jinlan found the wordless quiet comfortable too. Meow meow, Xiao Qingze murmured softly. She lazily responded, He sighed. I want to kiss you. What should I do? Qing Jinlan retorted impatiently, go soak your head. Xiao Qingze lightly laughed at her words. With such a long distance between them, it seemed like all they could do was have a cold salad relationship. Qing Jinlan's ears grew hot from his laugh. She spoke sternly, what are you laughing at? I'm still waiting for your explanation. Xiao Qingze stopped laughing and became serious. He slowly recounted to her his grandparents' past from beginning to end. After listening, Qing Jinlan was silent for a long time. She knew she had a young uncle who had died prematurely. Whenever her father mentioned this uncle, his words were full of respect and regret, but he avoided talking about how his uncle had died. Meow meow? Xiao Qingze called her when she didn't respond. Qing Jinlan rested her head against the car window and softly murmured in response. Why aren't you talking? I just feel like I was a bit willful. Her uncle was an elder her father liked and respected. He probably didn't want to have any connection with the Xiao family, but she had forced him to face the Xiao family because of her own willfulness. Xiao Qingzhe understood her unspoken feelings. He sincerely said, "I'm sorry." This was a debt owed by the Xiao family that could not be forgiven with just an apology, but right now, all he could do was apologize. Qing Jinlan replied, "Why are you apologizing? This has nothing to do with you. You weren't even born at that time. His grandfather was his grandfather, and he was him." She could still distinguish that. She pretended to be lighthearted. "You just have to work harder now. It looks like getting my dad's approval will be even harder than I thought." Xiao Qingzhe said, "I'm not afraid of difficulties, as long as you don't waver. Meow meow, promise me, don't retreat because of this, and don't blame yourself for this either. This isn't your fault." "Okay, I know. Go back to your meeting. It's so late already. Don't keep people waiting. I'm home now too." "All right." Xiao Qingzhe was worried. "Don't think about anything. Just sleep well. After hanging up the phone, Qing Jinlan sat in the car for a while before getting out. She passed through the moon gate and went to her parents' place. Qing Liqui was already asleep. Qing Jinlan tucked the hair stuck messily on her daughter's face behind her ears, then leaned down to kiss her forehead before gently leaving the room. Fei Zuhui came over holding a glass of honey water and handed it to her. "Drank a lot? Why is your face so red?" Qing Jinlan took the honey water with one hand and touched her face with the other. "Didn't drink much, just 2 glasses. Maybe I'm just flushing easily today." She took a sip of the honey water and looked towards the study. "Did my dad come back?" "He's back, in the study." Qing Jinlan hesitated for a moment, still unsure of what to say. Qing Shanhe called to her from the study, "Ernyang, if you have something to say, come in and talk." "Go on in." Fei Zuhui nodded towards the study. "He likes it when you look for him to talk. If your eldest brother said he wanted to talk, your dad's eyebrows would be knitted real tight." Qing Jinlan hugged Fei Zuhui briefly before turning and entering the study. Seeing her come in, Qing Shanhe took off his glasses and pointed to the sofa chair next to the desk. "Sit." "What's the matter?" Qing Jinlan sat down, rubbing her thumb over the glass surface, looking at Qing Shanhe. "Dad, I know about the situation between our family and the Xiao family now." Qing Shanhe got up, pulled over a chair, and sat down across from Qing Jinlan. "Did Xiao Qingzhe tell you? I ran into Wu Jingyao today. She said some nonsense, so I asked Xiao Qingzhe about it." Qing Shanhe said, "You don't need to pay any mind to what Wu Jingyao said. She shouldn't be relying on her relationship with Xiao Qingzhe to act superior in front of you. As far as I know, Xiao Yun is going through divorce proceedings with her." Qing Jinlan nodded slightly. She pondered for a moment before speaking again. "Dad, I'm sorry, I've been too willful." Qing Shanhe cut her off. "Jinlan, there are some things I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd feel burdened. No one can predict matters of the heart. The grievances between our families of the older generation have nothing to do with you or Xiao Qingzhe. As long as you're certain you like him and he treats you wholeheartedly, then he passes in my book. Of course," Qing Shanhe paused halfway through, "my assessment of him isn't over yet, so it's too early to say whether he passes or not. You can tell him clearly that my trial period for him will be at least 1 or 2 years, or even 7 or 8 years." Qing Jinlan smiled slightly. "Okay, Dad." Seeing his daughter smile, Qing Shanhe finally felt a little relieved. However, the Xiao family handled things quite gracefully this time, dealing with it swiftly and decisively, resolving most of what needed to be resolved. "I thought he would need more time, having to plan everything alone inside and out, but he resolved it so quickly, very much like his grandmother's style back in the day. Xiao Qingzhe is a lot like his grandmother in the way he handles matters and in looks." Qing Shanhe walked over to the bookshelf and took out a photo from a book, handing it to her. "This is a photo your uncle always treasured." The photo showed 2 people, looking like students. The boy was tall and handsome, while the girl had delicate features and short, stylish hair. The 2 were far apart, each looking at the camera, as if they were unrelated strangers who just happened to be photographed together. Your uncle liked her, but missed the chance to confess his feelings. Things like destiny, one misstep leads to continued missteps after that. Even with regret, nothing can be salvaged. Before your uncle passed away, he told me he was glad to be able to follow in her footsteps. If he knew you were together with Enyan Qing's grandson, I think he would also be comforted. Qing Shanhe patted his daughter's shoulder. So don't let it weigh on your mind too much. Things like romance, just focus on you and him. If he can't make you happy, kick him to the curb and find someone else. Discover NW Chapter SNN0EL by.com. Qing Jinlan had always felt she had the best dad and mom in the world. They would guide her when she was lost, cheer her up when she was unhappy, like a lighthouse, standing firmly by her side, protecting her and their family. That night, Qing Jinlan didn't go back to her own place, instead sleeping with her daughter in the same bed, her daughter in her arms, her parents next door, probably the most secure feeling in the world. The next morning when Qing Jinlan woke up, she saw the message he had sent late last night, saying he was boarding the plane and would contact her after landing. She knew he was flying to Singapore today. He had been gone for 5 days already. Before, a week had felt like it was passing quickly, but now after just 5 days, it felt like time was passing a little slowly. Qing Liqui had woken up too. She blurrily opened her eyes, saw her mother was right beside her, coquettishly called out in a long, drawn-out voice "Mama," then flipped over to lay on top of Qing Jinlan, hugging her neck. Still sleepy-eyed, she said, "Mama, I dreamed about you and Papa last night." Qing Jinlan gently asked, "What were we doing in your dream?" Qing Liqui thought for a moment. "Nothing special really, just Papa cooking in the kitchen, Mama working, and me playing games in the living room, but I just felt so happy." Qing Jinlan kissed her little face. "So it's such a simple thing that makes our Liqui happy." Qing Liqui nodded vigorously. "Being happy is a very simple thing." She nodded so hard that her messy hair shook along with her movements. Looking at the hair falling in front of her eyes, then thinking of how she looked right now, she laughed loudly, even laughing hard enough to bend over backwards. "Mama, don't I look really funny right now, like a little lion?" Qing Jinlan messily ruffled her hair. "Now you really look like a little lion." Thinking her mother wouldn't notice, Qing Liqui secretly got up and reached out her little arms to messily ruffle her mother's hair too, laughing even louder. "Mama looks just like me now." Qing Jinlan held her little waist to keep her from falling over, pressing her forehead to her daughter's forehead. "So now our family has 2 lions, 1 little lion and 1 big lion." Mother and daughter rolled around on the bed, and after Fei Zuhui knocked on the door and came in, he said, "Stop messing around and get up. There's a lot to do today. Old 2, go to the company early and come back early. Little Liqui, go shopping with Grandma later. Hurry up and get ready, wash up and eat breakfast." The adult and the child immediately stopped their romp. They obediently responded and quickly got out of bed, lining up one after the other to go to the bathroom to wash up. Their flight was tonight. They were going to the island to play for 10 days. When they came back, it would be little Liqui's birthday. Qing Jinlan arrived at the hotel and had meetings with various departments all morning. Not only the employees, even she herself ended the meetings with a dizzy head. She went back to her office. The first thing she did was take off her high heels and step on the floor barefoot. It felt extremely comfortable. She didn't plan to eat lunch here either. She tidied up the work at hand and prepared to leave. Just as she sat down, she heard a knock at the door. She called out "Come in" a loud voice. Her high heels were still at the door. She didn't go to put them on either. Anyway, Tangy Chang was already used to her occasional unreliability. The door opened, and Qing Jinlan saw the person behind Tangy Chang. She was stunned. How could he appear here at this time? Tangy Chang brought the person in and took the opportunity to withdraw. Watching the boss fall in love was too hurtful for a single dog. Xiao Qingzi looked at her somewhat blank expression. The irritability in his heart all the way here finally settled down. He walked up to her with a smile in his eyes. "I hope it's a surprise, not a shock." He changed his route temporarily. He was originally flying to Singapore, but the phone call last night made him a little worried, so he still wanted to come back and take a look. Also, he missed her, he just didn't know if she missed him. Qing Jinlan sat in her chair, looking up at him steadily, then slowly opened her arms and said softly, "Hug me." Without a second of hesitation, Xiao Qingzi leaned down and hugged her tightly. His voice was hoarse from not sleeping all night. "It seems you missed me too." It wasn't a question but a statement. Qing Jinlan rested her chin on his shoulder, her arms circled his waist. She didn't deny his words, only asked him, "Why did you come back?" Her dependent posture and longing tone made Xiao Qingzi feel that changing his route this time was the most correct decision. He hugged her even tighter and said to her, "Because I wanted to kiss you, so I came back." Qing Jinlan leaned in and softly asked in his ear, "So do you want to kiss now?" Xiao Qingzi's breathing suddenly became hurried. He hugged her waist tightly, lifted her onto the desk, and changed the height of the two people to the most suitable height for kissing. He gently lifted her chin, and her lips were delivered to his mouth. The first kiss fell lightly and gently, seeming to touch but not to touch, gently teasing. Qing Jinlan's nerves were hooked by this light tingling numbness, involuntarily wanting more. Xiao Qingzi's eyes grew darker and darker, and the light rain suddenly turned into torrential rain, sweeping everything away and devouring everything. In a daze, Qing Jinlan thought of something. She reached out her hand on the desk to grope around, but no matter how she groped, she couldn't find it. Xiao Qingzi felt her distraction and punished her by lightly biting her lips. His palm suddenly tightened over the soft curves, and Qing Jinlan couldn't hold back the soft moan and whimper from her throat. She kicked his leg with the foot dangling in midair. This was an office, not home. Xiao Qingzi's lips didn't leave hers. "What are you looking for?" "Remote control, glass." Qing Jinlan barely breathed out a few words. Although nothing could be seen from the outside at this height, it was still better to be safe than sorry. Xiao Qingzi understood her words. He reached out and took the remote control behind her and pressed a button. The transparent bright glass changed color and blocked the scenery and sunlight outside. All of Qing Jinlan's strength had been drained by him, she could only lean into his arms. His force was so great it was as if he wanted to embed her into his body. She pushed his shoulders with her hands but couldn't exert any strength at all. Xiao Qingzi's kisses slowly moved from the corner of her lips to the root of her ear. His hoarse voice whispered, "Don't worry, I won't do anything. I have to leave in an hour. If we really do it, I'm afraid I won't be able to stop." Qing Jinlan wanted to kick him again, but her feet were clamped by him, she couldn't move even if she wanted to, she could only continue to sink following his breathing. After the storm subsided, he sat in her office chair and she sat on his lap. He didn't do anything, but her hair was messy, her shirt was wrinkled, and the buttons were messy. If she didn't have spare clothes here, Qing Jinlan would have wanted to open the door and kick him straight out. Xiao Qingzi carefully helped her button up her shirt one by one, his actions were perfect gentlemen, completely different from just now. "I'm sorry, I was too impatient." You could never find any fault in his apologetic attitude. Qing Jinlan slapped his hand away. "Don't button them up," she let him see for himself. "Do you think it can still be worn?" Xiao Qingzi's expression was unusually embarrassed for once. "Do you have a spare? Or should I have someone bring one over now?" Qing Jinlan glared at him, but she also knew she couldn't put all the responsibility on him. After all, she was the one who tempted him first. She leaned over to reach the phone on the desk and called Tangy Chang on the intercom, asking him to bring 2 meals from the restaurant. She hung up the phone and turned to ask him, "Do you want to go inside and rest for a while, take a little nap?" This office of hers was a suite with a rest area inside that had everything. He had changed plans temporarily and flew back like this, he must not have slept well. Xiao Qingzi replied, "I won't sleep anymore. There's so little time left, it would be too much of a waste to use it for sleeping." Qing Jinlan looked at his slightly sunken eye sockets. She cupped his face with both hands and said to him earnestly, "Next time don't rush back like this. What I said on the phone was what I really felt. You don't have to come back and confirm it again. Aren't you tired?" Xiao Qingzi also answered her sincerely, "I was just afraid that if I missed it once, you would run away again." Qing Jinlan got off his lap and gathered the collar of her shirt in her hands. Her tone was joking, "I will run, don't you know how to chase?" The white toes falling on the black floor created too strong a visual impact. The irritation in Xiao Qingzi that had finally subsided began to flip uncontrollably again. He reached out to catch her. Qing Jinlan sensed his intention and had already turned and ran towards the rest area. First fast steps, then directly running. She then slammed the door shut, locking the vicious wolfhound outside, and locking the door. Xiao Qingzi leaned against the door and said to the person inside, "You're right, I was too stupid before." He deliberately lowered his voice, but it could still penetrate the door and reach the inside. They say a dog's nose is the most sensitive. "I won't forget your scent in this lifetime, so no matter where you run to the ends of the earth, I can still catch up to you." The only reply he got was an angry "Get lost." Qing Liqui didn't know at all that her dad had come back. Before boarding the plane that night, when Grandma went to the bathroom, she even video called her dad. Xiao Qingzi had just gotten off the plane and happened to pick up his daughter's video call. Qing Liqui chatted with her dad for a long time and finally held the phone sideways and asked her mother, "Mom, do you want to talk to Dad?" Qing Jinlan's eyes were fixed on the tablet, she didn't even lift her head once. "No more to say, just you talk to Dad." Qing Liqui looked at her dad in the video and sighed lightly, "Dad, it seems you haven't done well enough. You don't have a very important position in Mom's heart. It seems Mom doesn't even miss you, so Dad, you have to work harder." Xiao Qingze chuckled softly at his daughter, "Then Dad will try harder." "But Dad misses Mom very much, and little Liqui too." Honey flowed from Qing Liqui's curved eyes. "I miss Dad too." Because she missed her dad so much, Qing Liqui sent her dad beautiful photos of her mom every day, of course also photos of herself. She was now a little photographer who especially liked to take pictures of her mom and grandma. After sending them to Dad, she certainly couldn't forget Grandpa. She also sent all the beautiful photos she took of Grandma, and of herself, to Grandpa. She didn't even need to ask, Grandpa must miss her and Grandma very very much. Today they were invited by the neighbors on the nearby island to attend a party. There were many people at the party, and even more came to talk to Mom and Grandma. Mom and Grandma were so beautiful. Qing Liqui blinked and picked up her phone hanging around her neck. 5 minutes later, Xiao Qingze and Qing Shanhe received the photos sent by Qing Liqui. The two men narrowed their eyes at the same time. Qing Jinlan received a video call from Xiao Qingze and was a bit surprised. She apologized to everyone and told Qing Liqui that she needed to take a phone call outside and asked her to stay with Grandma. Qing Liqui obediently nodded her head. Her bright eyes were filled with mischief, and she knew without looking that it must be her dad who called. Qing Jinlan walked out of the lively house and found a relatively quiet corner to sit in a beach chair and answered the call. "Why aren't you asleep yet? It should be 2 or 3 in the morning over there." Looking at the woman on the screen, Xiao Qingze spoke in an even lower voice, as if whispering right next to her ear, "Missing you." His deep gaze was too focused. Qing Jinlan unconsciously avoided his eyes and looked out at the boundless night sea. She only gave him a glimpse of her fair neck and softly replied, "Then you can only miss me." "What are you doing?" Xiao Qingze's voice grew lower. Qing Jinlan tucked the hair brushing her cheeks behind her ears. "The neighbors on the nearby island are having a party and invited us." "Is it fun?" Qing Jinlan nodded. She looked completely relaxed. "It's quite interesting." "That's good, have fun then." Xiao Qingze was half sincere and half perfunctory. "Okay, you should go to sleep too. You have to get up early tomorrow." Qing Jinlan was about to hang up. "Meow meow," Xiao Qingze stopped her. Where's the necklace?" Qing Jinlan looked down. She had taken off the ring and necklace when showering and forgot to put them back on when going out. Qing Jinlan replied, "Forgot to wear it." Just as Xiao Qingze was about to say something, a man's voice came from the distance on his end. "Lan, what are you doing out here alone? Come back and dance." Without even looking at the man, Xiao Qingze could tell from his voice that he was likely a very young man with a foreign accent. Qing Jinlan waved her hand at the man. "Go first. I'll be right there." Seemingly casual, Xiao Qingze asked, "A friend?" "His Chinese is pretty good." Qing Jinlan was too lazy to expose the undisguised sourness in his tone. "The host's son. A sunny, handsome boy. Very cute." Xiao Qingze was silent for a second. "I thought you don't like puppies." Leaning on her chin, Qing Jinlan lazily tapped her cheek with her index finger. "I suddenly realized that occasionally changing tastes isn't bad either." Xiao Qingze knew she was doing it on purpose, yet he couldn't help his changing expressions. Qing Jinlan got up from the beach chair. "All right, it's late. Go to sleep. I'm going to dance now." The video was disconnected and the screen went pitch black. Xiao Qingze's face darkened as he rebooked the flight ticket he had just booked. Last night's party ended very late, but Qing Jinlan and her mother returned early. Young children sleep early, and Qing Liqui was especially drowsy last night. Before 8 o'clock, she rubbed her eyes and said she was sleepy, probably worn out from running around the beach all day. But when they got back to the villa, the sleepy girl suddenly regained her spirit and pestered her mother and grandma to watch an animated movie before going to bed. Vacation was all about relaxing. The 3 generations slept until noon every day before getting up. Qing Jinlan woke up a little early today. She seemed to smell food cooking outside, but her mother was sleeping in bed, and the housekeeper usually didn't come until the afternoon. So who was cooking? Qing Jinlan shuffled out in slippers and slowly wandered over. Opening the door, she saw the person behind the bar and was pleasantly surprised for a moment. Qing Shanhe was frying eggs. Hearing the door open, he turned and saw it was his daughter. He smiled gently. "You're up so early? Did I wake you?" Qing Jinlan shook her head. "Dad, when did you get here?" "Yesterday." Little Liqui video chatted with Grandpa. He said he was going to Lin City today to investigate a project. How did he appear here as soon as she woke up? Qing Shanhe turned off the stove and said to his daughter, "I had your brother go for me. Although Xiao Qingzai is the same age as your brother, he already shoulders the Xiao family business alone. I'm at retirement age now, it's time to let go. I plan to have your brother take over for me by the end of this year. Then your mother and I can travel the world." Qing Jinlan gave her dad a thumbs up. "Great idea, Mom will be thrilled." Qing Shanhe took a peek inside the bedroom. Leaning in, he quietly asked his daughter, "Did your mom have fun last night?" Now Qing Jinlan seemed to understand why her dad showed up here so early in the morning. There was a fleeting trace of amusement in her eyes as she replied, "She had a great time." She and the host's son opened the party with a dance that brought down the house. Afterwards, men lined up to ask her to dance. Qing Shanhe coughed. "Your mother has always been a great dancer." Qing Jinlan nodded in agreement. "It's just that Mom was wearing a ring, otherwise someone would have asked her out to dinner tonight." Qing Shanhe asked, "Are they hosting another party tonight?" Barely containing her laughter, Qing Jinlan took a sip of water. "No more parties." Qing Shanhe was a little disappointed that he didn't even get a chance to stake his claim. Qing Liqui was overjoyed to see Grandpa when she woke up. Fei Zuhui was also in a good mood seeing her husband. The atmosphere was great until lunch when Qing Shanhe mentioned someone he ran into on the plane. Fei Zuhui's expression immediately changed. With her daughter and granddaughter present, she refrained from leaving the table but put down her chopsticks and refused to eat another bite of the meal he had cooked. Qing Shanhe noticed his wife's displeasure but didn't realize what he had done wrong. The person he mentioned was a close friend of Fei Zuhui's. As far as he knew, the two had a good relationship. They happened to be on the same flight and her seat was next to his, so they chatted for a bit. Qing Shanhe looked to his daughter, but Qing Jinlan was also unclear about what had happened. She only knew that Madame Liu, whom her dad spoke of, used to visit her mom quite frequently in recent years until she suddenly stopped appearing at their home. Judging by her mom's reaction, something must have happened between them. After the meal, Qing Jinlan tentatively asked Fei Zuhui a couple times but didn't get any clues. She wanted to help her dad but didn't know where to start since her mom was quite upset this time and wouldn't even speak to him. After swimming with little Liqui in the pool for a few laps, she went to take a nap, leaving Qing Shanhe alone in the pool to reflect on which of his words had triggered his wife. Qing Jinlan had been sleeping very well these days. Not feeling sleepy in the afternoon, she strolled along the beach, picking up pretty seashells to later play with little Liqui after she woke up. The sandy beach was soft and silvery. She had unknowingly walked quite far, around to the backyard of the small island. The sky was blue, the clouds were white, and the sea breeze was mild. Falling asleep here also seemed like a nice idea. Qing Jinlan sat on the dock by the seaside, dipping her feet into the cool water. She lined up the collected seashells from biggest to smallest, a very boring thing to do, yet she somehow found it quite amusing. The screen of her phone sitting next to her lit up and she smiled, picking it up to answer. "Meow meow, look up," said the person on the call. Qing Jinlan looked up blankly. A yacht appeared in her line of sight, heading toward her on the azure surface of the sea. She was momentarily speechless. "Don't tell me you're on that yacht?" The yacht approached swiftly atop layers of waves and stopped next to the dock. The person standing on the deck immediately confirmed her guess. Qing Jinlan craned her neck to look at him. Dressed in black beach pants and a white shirt, his sharp, chiseled features seemed even more handsome and ethereal in the sunlight. She thought she must be dreaming. The gangway was directly across from Qing Jinlan. Xiao Qingzai walked over and held out his hand to her. "Come aboard?" Qing Jinlan's mind went blank when he pulled her onto the yacht, and she gradually came to her senses. "What are you doing here?" Xiao Qingzai put his arm around her and walked her towards the helm. With one hand wrapped around her waist and the other steering the wheel, he turned the direction and said, "I've been here for a while, arrived at the airport around the same time as your dad." Xiao Qingze saw Qing Shanhe at the airport exit. Qing was ahead of him, but they flew in from different places and landed around the same time. "Then where have you been all morning?" "Next door." "Hmm?" Xiao Qingze leaned in and pecked her lips. "You have two neighbors. The one who hosted the party last night was your neighbor to the west. I'm your neighbor to the east." He somehow always ended up as her neighbor no matter where she went. "When did you buy it?" What she really wanted to say was if he had money to burn. She didn't say it out loud, but Xiao Qingze could tell what she was thinking from her expressive eyes that made him unable to resist the urge to kiss her this instant without waiting another minute. Xiao Qingze accelerated the yacht to full speed and barely docked at the pier on the eastern neighboring island. He picked her up in his arms, answering her previous question, "Strike while the iron is hot." "To pluck the moon, I need to build several pavilions along the water." Qing Jinlan wrapped her arms around his neck, lips brushing past his ear, and scoffed softly, "I think you're just crazy." Xiao Qingze turned his head to kiss her snow-white neck, his footsteps unhalted as he carried her below deck to the cabin. "When it comes to certain things, I'm very willing to go crazy." It was true insanity. The moment his breath fell on her, Qing Jinlan knew this would be the end today. She pushed him while retreating to the corner of the bed. "I have to go back at 3 o'clock. Liqui will wake up around then and look for me." Xiao Qingze raised his wrist to check his watch. There were still 2 hours before 3 o'clock. He ripped open the buttons on his shirt, revealing his toned abs, and pulled her ankle to drag her back under him. "I'll definitely let you go back at 3. Qing Jinlan was truly afraid. She took the initiative to lean in, her lips brushing against his bobbing Adam's apple. Her voice was blurred and soft. "Xiao Qingze, you have to be gentle." All the blood in Xiao Qingze's body instantly surged towards his lower abdomen. He suppressed his ragged breathing, supported her waist with his arm, and slid his hand up her smooth calf. She was wearing a black strap dress that facilitated any of his actions. His voice was hoarse as he assured her, "I will be very gentle." And he was gentle indeed, so gentle that Qing Jinlan wanted to die. Her dress was bunched up at her waist as she lay prone on the bed. The person behind her had hot, heavy breaths that slowly traveled down from her shoulders, leaving a moist trail that seeped into her pores and teased every nerve ending with an unbearable tingling. Her muffled whimpers grew louder as she groped behind her, trying to catch the culprit wreaking havoc on her body, but her limbs were limp and powerless. "Xiao Qingze," she sobbed his name. "Hmm? Do you want me to be even more gentle?" Qing Jinlan was at a loss for words. Hearing no response, Xiao Qingze's breath continued its descent. He grabbed her hand resting by her side and interlaced their fingers. "Do you like sunny boys or do you like me more?" She remained silent, so Xiao Qingze switched from licking to nibbling. Qing Jinlan suddenly shuddered, and her muffled whimpers on the bed grew louder. He asked again, "Do you like sunny boys or do you like me more?" Qing Jinlan's voice trembled as she answered him. Her delicate voice contained defiance and grievance. "You. Do you want to try something new?" Qing Jinlan shook her head. Having obtained the answer he wanted, Xiao Qingze naturally did his utmost to please her with all the gentleness he could manage. The weather at sea was unpredictable. The previously sunny afternoon suddenly turned windy, and the yacht rocked with the waves. He rocked along with the boat's rhythm, shallow then deep. Qing Jinlan was neither able to live nor die. She felt suspended and a breath away from death, yet the next second she feared being tossed into the deep sea waves. Lightning split the clouds where the water met the sky, followed by the deafening rumble of thunder. Qing Jinlan's muffled moans were intermittent between the thunderclaps, sometimes loud, sometimes soft. Only when a rainbow appeared across the horizon did the cabin finally quiet down. Qing Jinlan was drenched in sweat as if she had been caught in the rain. Her damp hair clung to her forehead. Follow US stories at nv.l/by/n.com. Although annoyed, the cathartic perspiration left an indescribable comfort despite the lingering soreness. So she couldn't muster the same righteous anger to make frivolous demands, only asking him to fetch her some ice water since she was hot and thirsty. What he brought back was warm water. Qing Jinlan didn't want to drink it. She wanted cold water, not warm water. Xiao Qingze brought the cup to his lips and took a big gulp before leaning in to feed her. Qing Jinlan dodged and refused. Between the chase and evasion, their breathing grew ragged again. The phone on the nightstand buzzed. Qing Jinlan stopped him with a look. Xiao Qingze rolled over to lie beside her and pulled her into his embrace without further mischief. He even handed her the phone. It was Jiang Jiang. Qing Jinlan cleared her throat to make her voice sound normal before answering. Jiang Jiang, what's up? Jinlan, are you free tomorrow night? I want to take you out for dinner. Qing Jinlan pressed down the wandering hand on her waist and replied, I'm out traveling with Liqui these days. I can't go home for a few more days. How about I find you when I get back? I'll probably be gone by then. I can only make plans again the next time I come back. Qing Jinlan sat up in bed. Where are you going? Jiang Jiang said, our company is setting up a new department in South America. They want me to go over there and I agreed. Why so suddenly when you just got back? It's not really that sudden. I've been debating it for a while and finally decided to take another shot at my career. The sense of security a career provides is irreplaceable. Since she had made up her mind, Qing Jinlan didn't say anything more. When are you leaving? Early morning the day after tomorrow. Then I'll go back tomorrow. I can make it home tomorrow night. Jiang Jiang panicked, no need for that. Don't disrupt your plans because of me. I'm not leaving forever. Once things stabilize over there, I'll come back at least once a month. We can have dinner then. Qing Jinlan had wanted to ask if her brother or Fei Zuhui knew she was leaving, but felt it wasn't her place to ask. Since Jiang Jiang chose to leave, she should want to break free of the past and start anew. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing for someone to decide to abandon the past and restart. The other two would probably move on slowly as well. After hanging up, Qing Jinlan stared blankly at her phone screen. Xiao Qingze slowly approached her from behind. What's wrong? Qing Jinlan sighed lightly. I just feel it's a pity for all three of them. He naturally knew who the third person in the trio was, but Xiao Qingze didn't want to hear another man's name in his bed. He sealed her mouth to cut off any more discussion of other people's love and strife that had nothing to do with them. When Qing Jinlan woke up again, it was almost midnight. She was startled awake and seemed to remember taking a groggy call from Liqui. She got up and put on the fresh set of clothes on the bedside, but even the slightest movement made everything ache. She couldn't help letting out a soft moan. Hearing the movement, the man outside walked in and sat on the bed to help her get dressed. Don't rush. You already told Liqui on the phone to let Grandma know you went ashore to see a friend and wouldn't be back until late. Qing Jinlan was surprised she had come up with an excuse for her daughter even in her semi-conscious state during the day's debauchery. Although full of holes, her mother usually wouldn't expose her lies and would even help cover for her. Are you hungry? I'll bring food in. I don't want to eat. I need to go back. I'll start the boat. Go eat something on the couch. It won't make a difference waiting this bit longer. Even in a hurry, Qing Jinlan knew she couldn't instantly fly back. She really was hungry, and he sailed very steadily, allowing her to eat comfortably. So when the boat docked at the pier where it had stopped at noon, her attitude towards him had slightly improved. Drive slowly when you go back, she instructed him and prepared to get off the boat. Xiao Qingze reached out to hug her, let me take you back. No need. Qing Jinlan had just put one leg down the gangway when she froze, the pain between her legs was really unbearable. She couldn't help but glare at the man behind her, this madman. Xiao Qingze knew he was in the wrong, so he picked her up horizontally. I'm sorry, I lost my composure. Qing Jinlan bit his neck viciously, to let him feel some pain too, only then did she feel a little better balanced inside. He had been here before, completely familiar with the place. Without her telling him, he knew which room was hers. She didn't allow him to come in through the front door, that would surely wake up her parents. She told him to come in through the window. Xiao Qingze had just put her down on the bed when Qing Jinlan pointed at the half-open window and said, leave. She wouldn't let him touch the bed again. Xiao Qingze kissed her lips, don't be angry anymore. When you wake up tomorrow, think about how to punish me, I'll accept whatever punishment you decide. Qing Jinlan didn't want to hear him talk right now, go quickly, don't wake up my parents. Xiao Qingze didn't dare make her angry again. He helped tuck her in and then turned to leave the same way he came. But just as he was about to climb down from the windowsill, he heard some noise from the corridor. He looked over. Qing Shanhe, who had just been locked out of the bedroom by his wife before managing to coax her to sleep, was about to sneak back into the room through the window. In the darkness, at each end of the corridor, one person was jumping out the window while another was climbing in. When the two made eye contact, they knew how awkward this was. Qing Jinlan saw that he was standing still at the windowsill, staring blankly, and asked hazily, "What's wrong?" Xiao Qingzhe turned back to soothe her, "Nothing, go back to sleep." So Qing Jinlan didn't bother him anymore. She slowly closed her eyes again. She was so tired that the moment her head hit the pillow, she just wanted to sleep. Xiao Qingzhe weighed the current situation. To pretend not to see each other and continue on their separate paths should be the best choice for both of them. But obviously, this was not his decision to make. Qing Shanhe, who had already put one leg up on the windowsill, calmly placed it back down to the ground. The look in his eyes through the pitch-black night was like a sharp blade, pinning Xiao Qingzhe in place. Qing Shanhe asked himself, in his decades of experience in the business world, he rarely encountered a situation as embarrassing as today. But no matter how embarrassed he felt inside, he absolutely could not show it on his face. Instead, he had to overwhelm the other party with absolute majestic aura, leaving them no room to fight back. Xiao Qingzhe came down from the windowsill and gently closed the window. He walked to a place not far from Qing Shanhe, prepared to be beaten or scolded. The key was, these were not the most important things. The most important thing was that he had to pretend not to know about his future father-in-law's attempt to climb through the window just now. He would pretend Qing Shanhe was just unable to sleep in the middle of the night and had come out for a walk to enjoy the moonlight, nothing more. The two men who had climbed walls and slipped through windows in the middle of the night had both made up their minds about how to deal with the situation before them. But neither had figured out what to say first. Qing Shanhe was thinking, "You broke into my house in the middle of the night and came out of my daughter's room, you should give me an explanation first." Xiao Qingzhe was thinking, he couldn't escape the blame anyway, so he might as well let his father-in-law speak first to see which way the wind blows before responding accordingly. In any case, he must not let his father-in-law lose face tonight. In such dead silence, the most unbearable thing was tranquility, especially this kind of quiet in the dead of night without even the barking of dogs. Get latest level CHDRs on nvelbj/n.c/m. The two men of similar height stood at opposite ends of the corridor, facing each other in awkward silence. Even the fish dozing off in the sea could feel their awkwardness. Seeing that his father-in-law wasn't speaking, Xiao Qingzhe was about to open his mouth when Qing Shanhe spoke up as well. "Uncle. You." They both started talking at the same time and stopped at the same time. Even the crows sleeping in their nests couldn't stand it anymore. They flew out in circles, cawing a few times before going back. Even immortals probably couldn't save this situation. In the midst of this silent awkwardness, a small head suddenly popped out of the half-open window next to Qing Shanhe. "Grandpa, do you want to come in?" Qing Liqui whispered through the window to Qing Shanhe outside. Qing Liqui had just woken up thirsty from her sleep. In a daze, she took the glass of water on the bedside table and drank most of it. Then she saw Grandpa standing outside the window. She climbed out of bed, put on her slippers, and tiptoed over so as not to wake Grandma up. If Grandpa wanted to come in, she could help him. Qing Shanhe's expressionless cold face instantly softened when he turned to see his little granddaughter. He reached out and stroked Qing Liqui's little head, whispering, "Did Grandpa wake up, little Liqui?" Qing Liqui shook her head, and saw Xiao Qingzhe not far away. Her eyes lit up. "Dad, what are you doing here?" She looked at Dad, then at Grandpa. She felt they both looked a little strange, not like they were fighting, but something seemed off. What were Dad and Grandpa doing in the hallway so late? She had question marks popping up in her head when her eyes were drawn to the big moon in the sky. The moon was so big tonight, perfect for sitting by the seaside and moon viewing. Suddenly she realized, and asked Xiao Qingzhe, also asking Grandpa, "Dad, were you and Grandpa moon viewing out here?" Before Xiao Qingzhe and Qing Shanhe could say anything, Qing Liqui stretched out both little arms and said in a soft, faint voice full of delight, "Grandpa, come hold me and take me out to see the moon with you. I want to see the moon while swinging on the swing." Although they had not actually been moon viewing, if the granddaughter wanted to see the moon, Qing Shanhe would certainly oblige. He reached out and lifted the sweet granddaughter from the room, firmly shutting the window after. Once outside, Qing Liqui didn't want Grandpa to carry her. She wanted to walk by herself. She climbed down from Grandpa's arms and took Grandpa's big hand in one small hand. She held out the other to Dad, asking him to come hold her hand too. Xiao Qingzhe took 3 big steps over and gently clasped his daughter's tiny hand in his palm, not daring to grip too hard. Holding Dad's hand in one and Grandpa's in the other, Qing Liqui looked around the yard. Where was the best place for moon viewing? Ah! She found it. Qing Liqui pointed at the swing not far away. Grandpa, Dad, let's go over there to see the moon. I want to swing while looking at the moon. After saying this, she strode off first on little legs. Qing Shanhe and Xiao Qingzhe matched her pace and walked with her toward the swing. Xiao Qingzhe felt his daughter was a little angel sent from heaven, always able to pull him out of dire straits. Although Qing Shanhe still found the man beside him an eyesore, most of his attention was occupied by his sweet granddaughter, leaving little mind to care about that annoying man. Qing Liqui sat on the swing with a long wooden bench on either side. She told Dad and Grandpa to sit over there. But neither Qing Shanhe nor Xiao Qingzhe sat, standing guard on either side of the swing instead like bodyguards for the little princess. Qing Liqui rocked lightly on the swing, gazing at the moon for a while before turning to Xiao Qingzhe. Dad, when did you arrive? Xiao Qingzhe glanced at black-faced package Grandpa on the other side, then replied to his daughter, Dad arrived this morning. Grandpa arrived this morning too. Did you and Grandpa come together? No, Dad and Grandpa came from different places. Oh, Qing Liqui suddenly recalled something. Dad, this afternoon, Mom said she was going to see a friend and would be back very late. Was Mom going to see you? Are you only just sending Mom back after your date? Xiao Qingzhe gave a light cough, but facing his daughter's earnest eyes, could not give any other answer. Hearing Dad's cough, Qing Liqui realized her mistake. She covered her mouth with both hands. Dad seeing Mom was not something Grandpa should know about. Qing Shanhe's face grew as long as the swing suspension ropes. In his heart he knew one thing, but hearing little Liqui say it out loud was another matter altogether. Qing Liqui thought about how to change the topic. She turned to Grandpa. Grandpa, have you still not coaxed Grandma over? The corner of Qing Shanhe's eye twitched. His sweet granddaughter really knew how to stab the knife in. If he had coaxed Grandma over already, he wouldn't have had to climb through the window. Qing Liqui continued asking, didn't Grandpa's woe is me act work this time either? Usually Grandpa's woe is me act could make up with Grandma in under 5 minutes. The corner of Qing Shanhe's eye twitched again. His sweet granddaughter's jab was right on target. The woe is me act didn't work this time either. He had tried it yesterday afternoon, but his wife simply treated him as if he didn't exist, not even glancing in his direction once. Qing Shanhe felt a mix of many emotions at that moment. In the end he could only look towards the sea with a somewhat troubled expression, a woman's heart, the hidden reefs of the sea floor. Qing Liqui leaned her head on one hand with a light sigh, also gazing towards the seaside. It seemed Grandpa had made a very big mistake this time. He would probably have to climb through the window again tomorrow night too. From the conversation between granddaughter and father-in-law, Xiao Qingzhe understood something. His pitch-black eyes flashed as he too looked out at the boundless sea. The 3 gazes upon the sea composed a still life under the moonbeams and night breeze. Qing Jinlan stood at the window watching them quietly for a while before turning back to bed and drifting off to dreamland again. The calm sea surface suddenly stirred up waves as dark clouds gathered to obscure the big moon. It looked like rain was coming. Xiao Qingzhe and Qing Shanhe turned at the same time, each taking a step closer to the middle to block the wind blowing in from the sea. Qing Shanhe bent down and said to Qing Liqui, let's go back to sleep, it's going to rain. Qing Liqui nodded. She was getting sleepy too. She climbed off the swing so Grandpa could carry her. Turning to look at Dad, she asked, Dad, where will you sleep? Xiao Qingzhe looked at the sea that had become turbulent in just a few minutes. Even if it rained heavily by the seaside, it wouldn't last very long. He could stay on the yacht for a while until the rain stopped, then leave. Qing Liqui understood that her father had nowhere to sleep at night. She put her arms around her grandfather's neck and whispered in his ear, Grandpa, can Dad sleep here tonight? It looks like there's going to be a big storm and Dad has nowhere to go. Hearing his daughter's words, Xiao Qingzhe stopped what he was about to say. As long as his father-in-law agreed to let him stay, even if he had to sleep under the eaves, he had no objections. Qing Shanhe scoffed at Xiao Qingzhe in his heart, but he didn't want to disappoint his beloved granddaughter. He reluctantly said, let him sleep in the room next to Liqui's bedroom. Qing Liqui shook her grandfather's neck coquettishly, I knew Grandpa is the best. I love Grandpa the most in the whole world. Qing Shanhe had always been unable to resist his granddaughter's coquettish pleas. He smiled and patted her head affectionately. If it weren't for the weather forecast of heavy rainstorms tonight, he would have let Xiao Qingzi sail back by himself, let alone let him stay indoors. Xiao Qingzi squeezed his daughter's ankles and said to Qing Shanhe, "Thank you, uncle." Qing Shanhe ignored him and walked forward with his granddaughter in his arms. When they reached the door, Qing Liqui whispered to her grandfather and father, "I'll go sleep in my room. After Dad tucks me in, he can go sleep in the room next to mine." She moved even closer to her grandfather's ear and said in an even softer voice, "Grandpa, go sleep in Grandma's room. Grandpa, you have to take good care of Grandma and not let her be angry tomorrow." Qing Shanhe stroked his granddaughter's hair indulgently. She was a little schemer who knew everything. With his eyes, he warned Xiao Qingzi not to try anything funny under his nose. Just go to bed in the room obediently and leave when the rain stops. Qing Liqui brought her father to her room quietly and asked him to tell her a story to help her fall asleep. As for how Grandpa got into Grandma's room, probably only the rain hitting the windows knew. The sun rose very early by the seaside. Last night's rain lasted quite a long time. Xiao Qingzi didn't go back to the next room until after the rain stopped. He had napped for less than an hour before waking up. Since it was still early, he decided to go for a morning run, then return to the yacht to take a shower and change clothes before coming back to make breakfast. He had to leave before his father-in-law woke up. He still needed to show thoughtfulness and deference, as well as read the situation properly. After running around the island, Xiao Qingzi returned to the pier where the yacht was docked and saw a row of seashells laid out on it. His heart stirred. Weren't these the seashells she had arranged here yesterday? After a night of heavy rain, they were still there. Xiao Qingzi picked up the seashells one by one and went back to the beach to look for more nice seashells. It was already an hour later when Xiao Qingzi came out of the yacht again, later than he had originally planned. He quietly returned to the house, and just as he was about to open the door to Qing Jinlan's room, Qing Shanhe happened to come out from the other end of the living room. Their eyes met again. Xiao Qingzi knew he wouldn't get through that door today. He quickly hung the seashell bracelet on the doorknob of the bedroom before nodding to Qing Shanhe to indicate he was leaving. This time, Qing Shanhe didn't even bother to scoff at him. He just waved his hand to tell him to get lost. He had a headache dealing with the lawsuit and had no time to settle accounts with him now. In fact, Qing Shanhe had just been kicked out of the bedroom by his wife. Qing Shanhe felt that he was facing the biggest crisis in recent years, and this crisis left him completely confused. Qing Liqui woke up to the smell of food being cooked. Grandpa was making breakfast while the bed in the next room was neatly made. It looked like Dad had already left. Mom and Grandma's door was still closed, so they were probably still sleeping. Qing Liqui didn't want to disturb them and sat at the bar counter watching Grandpa cook. After a while, she ran out to the yard to swing on the swing set. It felt best to swing in the morning. Qing Liqui leaned back on the swing, swaying slowly. Suddenly she heard someone calling her name and looked up to see the handsome uncle from the neighbor's house with his cute little golden retriever puppy. Qing Liqui jumped down from the swing and ran over to greet the puppy. Qing Shanhe heard the voices and came out. Qing Liqui introduced them to her grandfather. "Grandpa, this is our neighbor William. His dog is called Freedom." William was learning Chinese and thought his Chinese was pretty good. He greeted Qing Shanhe and explained his visit first to bring over some homemade desserts, and second to deliver invitations to a party they were hosting that evening. Qing Liqui remembered the scene at that party and complimented William. "William, you dance so well, just like my grandma." William grinned, revealing 2 rows of pearly white teeth. "I don't dance as well as her. She's beautiful and dances beautifully." When Qing Shanhe heard her come out of his mouth, then heard what he said next, his gaze sharpened. Qing Liqui didn't notice her grandfather's displeasure. The puppy kept circling around her, nudging her arms and legs. Qing Liqui suddenly remembered something. "William, I have a gift I want to give Freedom." William was delighted. "Little Liqui, you're so nice." What he wanted to express was "you're so thoughtful." Qing Liqui went back into the house to get it. The puppy followed her inside. William handed the leash to Qing Liqui. "You hold him." Qing Liqui excitedly took the leash and led the puppy into the house. Yesterday, she and Grandma made a flower crown that she had left in Mom's room to give to the puppy. Mom's door was already open and there were sounds coming from the bathroom, so Mom was probably showering. Qing Liqui reached up to the table to get the flower crown and put it on the puppy's head. It fit perfectly. Qing Liqui wanted to take a picture of the puppy with mom's phone, but the puppy broke free of Qing Liqui's hold and ran out of the house still wearing the flower crown. Qing Liqui ran out after him. The puppy had already run back to William, who smiled widely when he saw the flower crown. "Thank you, little Liqui, very beautiful." Qing Shanhe was taking a phone call not too far away. William had an uneasy feeling that the man of this house didn't seem to welcome him. He said goodbye to little Liqui, welcomed the family to come over and play tonight, then waved to Qing Shanhe, who nodded slightly back. William had just taken a few steps when he noticed the seashell bracelet with a diamond ring hanging from the flower crown on the puppy. He took it off to examine it closely, then turned back and returned it to Qing Liqui. "Little Liqui, this is for your grandma or mom. It's precious, don't lose it, keep it safe." What he actually meant was to return it to whichever lady of the house it belonged to. Something so valuable must belong to one of the two women. Qing Liqui watched William's retreating figure, then looked down at the seashell bracelet in her hand, feeling a little confused. It didn't feel heavy at all though. Qing Shanhe hung up his phone call and came over to ask Qing Liqui what was going on. Qing Liqui handed the bracelet to her grandfather. William said to give this to grandma or mom. As soon as she finished speaking, Qing Liqui noticed the diamond ring tucked inside the seashell bracelet and the words written on the shells. Qing Shanhe saw it too. Clutching the bracelet, he went to chase after William. At that moment, Qing Liqui's phone rang. It was her dad calling. Xiao Qingze was calling to see if Qing Jinlan was awake yet. She hadn't replied to his messages either, so he didn't know if she had seen the seashell bracelet he left. "Dad, the handsome neighbor came to our house to propose today." There was a pause on the phone before Xiao Qingze asked his daughter for confirmation. "What?" "The handsome neighbor came to our house this morning and brought a seashell bracelet with a huge diamond ring inside. The shells had 'Will you marry me' written on them. Handsome neighbor said it was a gift for mom and grandma." Xiao Qingze, when Xiao Qingze hurried over, William had just explained the misunderstanding caused by the language barrier to Qing Shanhe in their native tongue, avoiding a fierce beating. The misunderstanding was clarified, but Qing Shanhe's attitude towards William did not improve much. Seeing Xiao Qingze come over, he was even more upset. He threw the bracelet at Xiao Qingze and gave him a single word, "Get out," signaling him to leave as far as possible. A bracelet was not enough to trick his daughter away. What was he thinking? He might as well try to pluck the moon with his bare hands. William looked at Xiao Qingze sympathetically. He had misunderstood the man of this house. The man's attitude was already considered good. There was a saying, what was it again? William remembered and said to Xiao Qingze, "We are both stranded souls in this world." He wanted to pat Xiao Qingze's shoulder to show sympathy. Xiao Qingze dodged to avoid his hand. He recognized his voice. This was the man who called her Lan that night. He was also in every photo Lucci had sent, including the one from last night. William's hand swung at empty air, but he did not think much of it, assuming the other man did not like physical contact. Xiao Qingze casually chatted with him for a few sentences, finding out why he had come so early in the morning. William knew he was a new neighbor and invited him to the party that night. Xiao Qingze did not confirm nor decline, only saying he would see about the timing. After Qing Jinlan and Fei Zuhui came out from the bedroom, Qing Shanhe had already sent away all the people he needed to. Fei Zuhui asked Qing Liuqi if she had heard William's voice. Qing Liuqi only told her grandmother that William's family was also hosting a party tonight and had invited them. She did not mention anything about the bracelet, engagement ring, or proposal. She blinked at her grandfather. Her grandmother had her grandfather, her mother had her father, and as for William, he was just a very handsome uncle. Qing Shanhe placed the peeled egg into his granddaughter's plate. Qing Liuqi smiled sweetly at her grandfather. "Thank you, Grandpa." Qing Shanhe peeled another egg for his wife, but Fei Zuhui put down her chopsticks and said she was full. She asked her daughter and granddaughter if they wanted to go next door to the party again tonight. Qing Jinlan drank her milk and nodded. Since her mother wanted to relax, she would definitely accompany her. Qing Liuqi swallowed her egg and excitedly raised her arm, also saying she wanted to go. She wanted to go play with the cute golden retriever, Freedom. Qing Shanhe silently finished the egg in his hand in one bite. Compared to last night, tonight's party was even livelier. Qing Liuqi held her mother's hand with her left and her grandmother's hand with her right as the three of them walked in. As soon as the three appeared, they attracted the attention of the entire venue. Qing Liuqi wore a fluffy white princess dress, sweet and cute. Qing Jinlan wore a snowy white silk strapless dress, cool yet alluring. Fei Zhuhui wore an almond white cheongsam, gentle and graceful with elegant poise. Qing Shanhe, who had been walking behind them, took a step forward to stand next to Fei Zhuhui. Although his wife was unwilling to take his arm, anyone with eyes could see their relationship. Yet some people were blind. Someone came over to ask Fei Zhuhui for a dance. Qing Shanhe stood up to stop it, but Fei Zhuhui silenced him with one sharp look. Qing Shanhe could only watch as someone else led his wife away. Qing Liuqi patted her grandfather's arm. "Grandpa, don't worry. Grandma is dancing to feel happier. When Grandma is happy, she won't be mad at Grandpa anymore." Qing Shanhe gave a wry smile and ruffled his granddaughter's little head. If only it could be that simple. Qing Liuqi bit on her straw, sipping sweet fruit juice. Looking up, she saw the person standing at the entrance. She waved excitedly, "Dad, over here." Seeing his daughter, the coldness in Xiaoqing's eyes softened into a gentle smile. He strode over and took his daughter's little hand, greeting Qing Shanhe first, "Uncle." With Qing Liuqi present, Qing Shanhe begrudgingly grunted in response. Qing Liuqi patted the spot next to her for her dad to sit. "Mom went to the restroom. She'll be right back." Xiao Qingzhe sat down next to Qing Liuqi. All day today, he had messaged her, and while she did reply, her responses were perfunctory, never exceeding 3 words. If he called, she would immediately hang up. Clearly, she was still upset about last night. Xiao Qingzhe rubbed his brow with his fingertip. He had gone too far last night, extremely so. Her anger was justified. Qing Jinlan returned from the restroom and saw him. Her footsteps faltered for a moment. Just then, William came over to ask her to dance. Qing Jinlan looked at Xiao Qingzhe, the corners of her lips curling into a smile. She smiled at him coquettishly, throwing Xiao Qingzhe off balance for a second. The next moment, Qing Jinlan extended her hand to William. Xiao Qingzhe smiled helplessly. It was blatant provocation, making him both love and hate her, love her so much he wanted to go over right now, take her in his arms, and kiss her, yet also hate her enough to want to press her back into bed and make her submit again. Qing Shanhe stared at his wife, eyes motionless. Qing Liuqi occasionally wiggled her little feet and sipped more fruit juice. How could her mother and grandmother be so beautiful? The 3 men sat side by side, each thinking about their own matters, just like their silhouettes last night looking out at the ocean, only today they were looking at the party scene. A young boy in a black tailcoat suit approached Qing Liuqi and very gentlemanly asked if he could have the honor of a dance. Qing Liuqi looked at her grandfather, then her father. Seeing their encouraging smiles, she nodded at the boy, agreeing to his invitation. With the 3 women of the family gone to dance, the 2 men were left on the bench, and the atmosphere returned to the awkwardness of last night. The 2 men, one young and aloof, the other middle-aged and refined, each had their own charm. From time to time, women would come up to chat or ask for a dance, only to be rejected before they even spoke. Qing Shanhe disliked how the other man could attract attention just by sitting there and said indifferently, "If you want to go, then go. My wife looks like she's having fun too. Parties are for fun after all. Don't mind me sitting here and pretend to behave just for appearance's sake." Xiao Qingzhe replied, "I can't dance. I'm bad at all dances, no coordination. I must have inherited it from my grandma. My dad said I'm very much like her, similar habits, personality, and looks." Qing Shanhe had been sneering but went silent after hearing this. Xiao Qingzhe took a glass of wine from the bar and held it out to Qing Shanhe. "Uncle, have you met my grandma before? She didn't like taking photos, so we don't have many at home. The ones we do have are all group shots where you can barely make out her face." Qing Shanhe did not take the wine glass. After a long silence, he spoke, "You really do resemble her a lot." He knew what this brat was trying to do, maneuvering the conversation skillfully to his advantage without causing resentment. Qing Shanhe liked clever people, but he did not like an overly clever son-in-law. His daughter should be the one handling him, not the other way around. The crux of the issue was that if the man was not clever, his daughter probably would not like him either, having inherited his preference for intelligent people. It seemed finding a son-in-law had always been difficult since ancient times. Qing Liuqi returned from her dance, cheeks rosy red like a crisp apple. Xiao Qingzhe brought his daughter a glass of coconut juice. Qing Liuqi drank it all in one go. Xiao Qingzhe gently wiped the corners of her mouth with a napkin and asked, "Did you have fun?" Qing Liuqi nodded. Her eyes were brimming with joy. Qing Shanhe observed them surreptitiously. He picked up the wine Xiao Qingzhe had left by his hand and took a sip, then looked again at his still happily dancing wife. He drank a large gulp. Xiao Qingzhe leaned in to whisper something to Qing Liuqi. Qing Liuqi happily got up and pulled her dad's hand. She told her grandpa, "Grandpa, let's go dance." Qing Shanhe never refused his little princess's requests. Sure, he agreed, taking Qing Liuqi's hand in his. He then frowned slightly, having assumed it would just be him and his cute granddaughter dancing together. Who would have thought there'd be another person as well? Qing Liuqi held her grandfather's hand with one of hers, and her father's hand with the other, leading them into the hall. Though she said they would be dancing, they really just circled around together, or more accurately, didn't even manage to make full circles, as there was still quite a gap between Xiao Qingzhe and Qing Shanhe. As the three spun around, they soon rotated to Fei Zhuhui's side. When the music ended, Qing Liuqi called out, "Grandma, come dance with me." Seeing her little granddaughter, Fei Zhuhui's eyes lit up, the rest of the people around her fading away. She declined her previous dance partner's invitation for another dance, joining Qing Liuqi's side instead. One of her hands was grasped by her granddaughter, while the other was tightly held by Qing Shanhe. Fei Zhuhui glared at him, but didn't struggle free. Qing Liuqi was elated to be dancing with her grandma, grandpa, and dad. Her laughter was like the tinkling of wind chimes blown by the sea breeze, crisp and charming. Her joy spread through the room, the atmosphere becoming even more energetic. Even those who had been off to the side joined in, people gathering in groups of 3 or 4 and swaying along with the music. The group spun closer to Qing Jinlan. Qing Liuqi called out, "Mom." Xiao Qingzhe nodded slightly at William, then extended his hand towards Qing Jinlan. William understood what was happening. With some regret, he let go of Qing Jinlan. She gave Xiao Qingzhe a smile as she took his hand, not holding back as she stepped on his foot several times, feigning clumsiness. Qing Shanhe watched the two discreetly, the corners of his lips quirking up uncontrollably. Though his daughter wasn't wearing high heels today, having her stomp on his feet several times probably still didn't feel too good. Don't ask how Qing Shanhe knew what that felt like, he just did. Xiao Qingzhe endured the pain in his feet, looking towards his daughter. Qing Liuqi understood her father's hint and turned to say to her mother, "Mom, I need to go to the bathroom urgently." Xiao Qingzhe bent down to pick up Qing Liuqi. "Let's go, I'll go with you and Mom." Qing Jinlan knew what little play they were putting on. She was happy to go along with it. "Mom," she said to Fei Zhuhui, "I'll bring Liuqi to the bathroom. You keep dancing with Dad." Qing Shanhe tactfully put his arm around his wife's waist. Their little 5-person circled dance had now become a couple's dance. Qing Shanhe decided that until he had properly explained the misunderstanding, he would keep dancing with his wife all night. After pondering it over for 2 days and 1 night, he had figured out what the issue was. It was probably because of that female friend of hers. Leaning against her father's shoulder, Qing Liuqi smiled knowingly at her mother. "Mom, aren't Dad and I so smart?" Qing Jinlan pinched her little nose. "You're just a sly little thing. Do you really need to use the bathroom?" "No, let's go to the beach and look for pretty shells instead," Qing Liuqi said, turning to her father. "Dad, can we?" Xiao Qingzhe held Qing Jinlan's hand and replied to his daughter, "Okay." Qing Jinlan scratched his palm lightly. Xiao Qingzhe grasped her hand tighter. The night sea was blue, the waves were white. Qing Liuqi ran ahead, stopping now and then under the moonlight and lamplight to pick up pretty shells. Xiao Qingzhe and Qing Jinlan strolled leisurely behind her. Xiao Qingzhe squeezed the hand in his. "Does it still hurt?" Qing Jinlan stomped on his foot again. "Quiet." Xiao Qingzhe chuckled lowly. Qing Liuqi ran back to them, handing over the shells she had collected for her dad to hold. She then raced off to find more shells. Qing Jinlan and Xiao Qingzhe watched their daughter's back as they both spoke at the same time, "Don't run so fast, be careful not to fall." Qing Liuqi yelled loudly back at her parents, "I know, Mom." "I know, Dad." The moonlight stretched their shadows long across the sand, the 2 tall figures enveloping the small one between them. The sea breeze caressed their faces, waves lapping at the shore then receding slowly. The sounds of the sea were like the loveliest lullaby, tugging uncontrollably at their heartstrings. Explore Ta Ti stories at no/l/bin.cm. Before long, Qinglikui came running back, hands full of shells again. Seeing her dad's hands were empty, she asked, "Dad, where are the shells I gave you?" Xiao Qingzi took the shells from Qinglikui's hands, gently saying, "Likui, shall I do a magic trick for you?" "Yay! I want to see magic." Qinglikui jumped up excitedly. She loved watching magic tricks. "Then close your eyes, Likui." Xiao Qingzi looked at Qing Jinlan. "You too, dear." Qinglikui obediently shut her eyes, but Qing Jinlan didn't. She wasn't a 6-year-old child to be so easily fooled. She wanted to see what tricks he was playing. Xiao Qingzi smiled and pulled her into his embrace, leaning down to kiss the corner of her lips. Qing Jinlan stabbed him with her eyes. "Dad, is it done?" Qinglikui asked. "Count loudly to 20, then open your eyes," Xiao Qingzi instructed. "Okay." As Qinglikui started counting, Xiao Qingzi covered Qing Jinlan's eyes with his hand. She twisted his waist in retaliation, feeling him slip something onto her other wrist. It was hard and cool to the touch. The moment Qinglikui counted to 20, she opened her eyes. Seeing the pretty pink shell bracelet around her wrist, she grasped her dad's sleeve excitedly. "Dad, you're so amazing. How did you turn the shells into a bracelet?" Xiao Qingzi ruffled her hair. "How it's done is a magician's secret. I can't tell you, Likui." Qinglikui was even more impressed. Her dad was an actual magician. She noticed her mom was also wearing a bracelet that looked like the one she had seen that morning. So the bracelet was her dad's gift to her mom, not William's. Was her dad going to propose to her mom? She blinked meaningfully at her father. Xiao Qingzi blinked back at her. Father and daughter communicated silently. Qing Jinlan lowered her gaze to the bracelet on her wrist, seeing the ring nestled among the shells, and the words etched onto them. The lively music from the villa softened into something mellow. Fireworks blossomed in the distant sky. Waves rolled up foamy silver sand to their feet before retreating slowly. Everything around them seemed to drift away, leaving just the 3 shadows huddled together on the beach. Qinglikui let out a soft ah, having discovered a glittery ring hidden among the shells of her bracelet as well. The pale pink diamonds adorning it shone brightly. "Dad, there's a ring in mine too." "That one's for you, Likui." "Yours is pink and Mom's is blue," Xiao Qingzi explained. Qinglikui compared her pale pink ring to her mom's pale blue one. The diamond on both was a water droplet shape. She looked up at her mom. "Isn't it so pretty, Mom?" "Very pretty," Qing Jinlan agreed gently. She couldn't deny that it was indeed beautiful. Qinglikui turned to her dad. "Dad, take the rings out and help put them on for me and Mom." Hearing her daughter's words, Qing Jinlan's eyelashes fluttered. Xiao Qingzi's heart skipped a beat as he watched them move. The rings could easily be removed from the bracelets. Xiao Qingzi first helped his daughter put on her ring. The size was perfect, not loose or tight. Qinglikui admired how the ring looked on her hand, thinking her dad had great taste. It had been easy to take the ring off her daughter's bracelet, but with Qing Jinlan, Xiao Qingzi's hand slipped several times, his palms damp with nervous sweat. He finally managed to remove the ring and slowly lifted her hand. Qing Jinlan's breath stilled, all other sounds fading away except for the pounding of her heart, or maybe his. The ring touched her fingertip and she instinctively drew her hand back slightly. It persistently chased after her finger. Qing Jinlan looked up, wanting to glare at him, but met his taut gaze first before noticing the fine beads of sweat on his brow. Her heart softened and in the next moment, the ring was slipped onto her finger. Slender fingers, smooth band, pale blue water droplet, simply beautiful. Xiao Qingzi gently stroked her fingers. Stepping forward with his left leg, he was about to kneel down. Actually, he should have knelt first before putting on the ring, but Xiao Qingzi was nervous and was also being cheeky. He was afraid that if he said those words first, she would refuse him. So it would be better to put the ring on her finger first. As long as she accepted the ring, everything else would be easy to say afterwards. Qing Jinlan sensed his intention and took a step forward. The distance between them became very close, but it also stopped his kneeling action. Her heart was beating too fast now and her mind was a bit blank, so he should not say it yet. She needed more time to think. Xiao Qingzi held her hand tightly and turned his head to look for her eyes. He didn't expect to succeed in one try. He just wanted to know what she was thinking right now. Qing Jinlan first avoided his eyes, then looked back at him, justified and proud. What, just because he proposed to her, she had to agree? Qing Liqui saw that Dad had put a ring on Mom's finger. She had been holding her breath, ready to cheer, but the atmosphere between Dad and Mom suddenly seemed a little stiff. She went to Mom and said, "Mom, let me see how the ring looks on your hand." Both Xiao Qingze and Qing Jinlan took a step back, increasing the distance between them. The tense atmosphere also dissipated. Qing Liqui placed her fingers side by side with her mother's. "Mom, doesn't it look even more beautiful with the ring on?" Qing Jinlan stroked her cheek with the back of her hand, but did not say anything. Qing Liqui held her mother's hand and said in a very soft voice, looking as if she was speaking to her mother but actually to her father, "Mom, the ring is beautiful, but if Dad proposes to you, you shouldn't agree." Qing Jinlan and Xiao Qingze looked at Qing Liqui at the same time. Qing Jinlan was a little surprised. Xiao Qingze squatted down, looking into his daughter's eyes, and cautiously began to speak. "Little Liqui, why don't you want Mom to agree to marry Dad?" Qing Liqui said seriously to her dad, "Dad, how could you only propose once? I'm 6 now, and you've only just appeared, so Dad, you have to propose to Mom at least 6 times before she can agree." "Right, Mom?" Xiao Qingze breathed a sigh of relief. Forget 6 times, even 60 times would be fine. As long as she and their daughter accepted him in the end, he knew he had rushed today. Qing Jinlan hooked her little finger with her daughter's, and they smiled at each other. Qing Liqui touched the ring on her mother's finger. "But Mom, you can accept the ring. Boyfriends and girlfriends have couple rings. The ring on me and Mom," she thought for a moment, "let's call it a princess ring, the big princess and the little princess's ring. Does this name sound good, Dad?" Xiao Qingze picked her up and stood up. "It's not just good, it's amazing." He held the hand of the woman beside him. "Our little princess is so smart, and our big." He didn't finish because someone covered his mouth. A faint blush appeared on Qing Jinlan's face. Little princess was little princess, but she didn't want to hear him call her big princess. The long corners of Xiao Qingze's eyes leaked out a delighted laugh. His eyes looked at her, and his lips lightly touched her fingers and the ring on them. Qing Jinlan's hand seemed to be scalded by fire and quickly jerked away. The smile in Xiao Qingze's eyes deepened. The waves suddenly grew bigger, rushing rapidly towards the shore. Qing Liqui patted her dad's shoulder, laughing and shouting, "Dad, run quickly. The big sea is coming to eat us. Dad will definitely not let the sea eat us up." Xiao Qingze held his daughter in his arms, held her hand, and ran against the sea breeze with big strides. Qing Jinlan followed his footsteps and ran with big strides too. The shells on her wrist rustled noisily and her skirt hem brushed her calves, seeming to tickle her heart. She could hear her daughter's cheerful laughter and his breathing. The corners of her mouth slowly curled up. Xiao Qingze turned his head to look at her, and she was looking at him too. The stars and moon in the sky fell into the sea, and the sea fell into her eyes. She was smiling, he heard it. Not far away, Fei Zhuhui and Qing Shanhe watched the scene. Fei Zhuhui's eyes were a little wet. Qing Shanhe sighed lightly and put his arm around his wife's waist. Some things were just fate. Fei Zhuhui said to Qing Shanhe, "Seeing how happy he makes our granddaughter, don't be too hard on him. Go easy when you should. What could be more important than our daughter's happiness?" Qing Shanhe replied, "No, I still have to make things difficult when I should. You didn't see just now, he was just sitting there, less than 5 minutes, and 3 women approached him. He's more attractive than a butterfly. When I'm around, he behaves himself, but when I'm not, who knows how fickle he is." Fei Zhuhui glared at him. "You're no less attractive than him. Does that mean you're fickle too? Just a plane ride, and you were chatting someone up. Did you get her number too?" Qing Shanhe quickly grasped his wife's hand. "How did we get to talking about me again? I already explained it clearly to you. I didn't know anything. I just thought she was your friend. Meeting your friend, I had to exchange a few polite words. I didn't say more than 3 sentences to her." In fact, Qing Shanhe was wrongly accused in this matter. If his wife hadn't told him, he really wouldn't have known Ms. Lu's intentions. Fei Zhuhui didn't know before either. She had always considered her a decent friend. One day when she was visiting, Fei Zhuhui accidentally discovered her smelling Qing Shanhe's clothes ecstatically. Fei Zhuhui was disgusted. She confronted her immediately and kicked her out of the house. She didn't want to tell Qing Shanhe about something so nasty, so she had kept it bottled up. The plane incident made her want to take it out on him. Who made him her husband? Fei Zhuhui viciously pinched the back of his hand. If you run into her again next time and you dare talk to her, don't even think about coming into my room again. Qing Shanhe swore, pointing to the sky, I won't run into her again, because she's just heir to me now. I won't even see her, how could I talk to her? Fei Zhuhui kept a straight face, but couldn't help laughing. She quickly put the straight face back on. You say he's slick, but you're no better. You're the big brother, and he's the second brother. How can you look down on him? Qing Shanhe saw that his wife had laughed and was in the mood for joking too. It can't be big brother and second brother. That's the wrong seniority. What's wrong with it? You don't recognize him as your son-in-law. Recognizing him or not is one thing, but seniority can't be wrong. Fei Zhuhui didn't want to indulge his stubbornness. Let him come home for Liqui's birthday dinner. Before Qing Shanhe could say anything, Fei Zhuhui cut him off. I've decided. Don't you dare say no, or I'll lock the windows tonight too and make you crawl through again. Qing Shanhe stroked his nose. His wife had already decided, so what more could he say? Of course whatever his wife said goes. Qing Liqui saw her grandparents and excitedly waved at them. It looks like Grandpa has appeased Grandma. Qing Liqui said to her mother, tilting her head. The three of them moved away from the beach, slowing down from running to walking. Qing Jinlan hadn't ran like this for a long time. Although she was panting, she felt an unexpected sense of exhilaration and lightness in her body. She saw her parents looking in their direction and wondered how long they had been watching. She wasn't afraid of being seen by her parents, she just felt a little embarrassed. Qing Jinlan struggled free from his hand. Let go. Xiao Qingzi didn't let go. Qing Jinlan looked at him and said again, let go. Xiao Qingzi sensed the threat in her eyes and obediently let her hand go. Qing Liqui cupped her dad's face. Big Uncle said Grandpa rules the outside world but is henpecked at home. It looks like Dad will become henpecked like Grandpa in the future. Qing Jinlan and the others had returned to China the day before Qing Liqui's birthday. Qing Jinchuan came to pick them up early in the morning. When he saw his little niece, he smiled from ear to ear. He took the child from Qing Shanhe's arms and looked at her little face carefully. Not bad. She's tanned a bit, but even prettier. Qing Liqui pinched her big uncle's ear and said, because I take after big uncle. I'm born beautiful, so I look good no matter what. Qing Jinchuan laughed. Though born beautiful doesn't suit big uncle, our little Liqui does take after big uncle, that's for sure. Qing Jinchuan's smile froze the moment he saw the person behind pushing the luggage. He turned to his father with his eyes, as if asking, what is he doing here? Qing Shanhe thought, don't ask me. I want to know just as much as you. There's a saying, isn't there? The more a mother-in-law looks at her son-in-law, the more she likes him. He's already captured your mom's heart. You'll be seeing more of him from now on. Just think of him as free labor, that's how I got through it. Father and son communicated wordlessly with their eyes. Xiao Qingzi pushed the fully packed luggage cart over and saw Qing Jinchuan. Big brother, he greeted. Qing Jinchuan's frosty expression instantly turned to disgust. What did he just call me? Qing Shanhe was also taken aback for a moment. Not only was this brat charming, he was shameless too. When he had first met his in-laws, he wasn't nearly as shameless as this guy. His audacity exceeded the city walls. Fei Zhuhui held in her laughter with great difficulty and lightly coughed. Actually, he wasn't wrong to call him big brother. Properly speaking, he should call Qing Jinlan big sister, but no one expected him to say it so naturally. Well, one had to be shameless at times like this. If he was still prim and proper when wooing a girl, not willing to let go of his pride, she would doubt his sincerity. If not for the people around, Qing Jinlan would have kicked him already. Why was he calling her brother? Just because her mom let him tag along and made him carry some luggage didn't mean he could act so familiar with her. Qing Liqui giggled. Is Dad going to be big uncle's minion? Xiao Qingzi nodded. Why not? Qing Jinchuan's shit-like expression improved a little after hearing his niece's words. Having Xiao Enterprises CEO as his minion and telling others about it didn't sound too bad. Qing Shanhe was fully focused on playing games with his granddaughter. Out of sight, out of mind. There would be time to settle old and new grudges with him when his wife wasn't around. Since Qing Shanhe saw Xiao Qingze as free labor, he would make full use of him. No need for the chauffeur to move the luggage, Xiao Qingze could do it himself. The weather was nearly 40 degrees Celsius. Qing Shanhe looked up at the blazing sun, very satisfied with the intensity. When he had first gone to his father-in-law's place, the old man had thrown him to the backyard to weed the vegetable patch. Though the sun wasn't as scorching then, weeding was much tougher than moving luggage. If Xiao Qingze wanted to marry into their family, he shouldn't fear hardship. This was just the beginning, more awaited him. Qing Jinlan stood not far from the trunk, watching Xiao Qingze load up the biggest luggage. He turned to look at her. Go wait in the car. No need to keep me company. It's too sunny here. I'll be quick. Who's keeping you company? Qing Jinlan's brows were knitted under her sunglasses. Arms crossed before her chest, she looked more like she was supervising rather than accompanying, though she had given him napkins. Amusement filled Xiao Qingze's eyes. What did you give me the napkins for? Sweat rolled down his temple, dangling from his jaw. Under the scorching, intense sunlight, it made one's heart flutter. Qing Jinlan's tone was severe. Do you need them or not? Xiao Qingze's hands kept moving. As he continued shifting luggage, he looked at her. Will you help me wipe? Qing Jinlan threw the napkins back into her bag. He could wipe himself or not. Xiao Qingze chuckled softly. His bobbing Adam's apple shone with sweat, moving along with his breath. Qing Jinlan's eyes flashed behind her sunglasses. Impatiently taking out more napkins from her bag, she stepped closer and slapped them onto his face, scrubbing roughly and vigorously while grumbling, "You're such a pain." Xiao Qingze's swelling laughter was muffled in his throat. His chest moved slightly with his breath. Qing Jinlan scrubbed even harder, leaving several red marks on his face. Letting him laugh so flirtatiously, didn't he see the passers-by ogling him? Her father was right, he was a troublemaker. Qing Jinchuan signaled the driver to honk. What was taking him so long? Did he think they had all day? Flirting with his sister in public like that. Fei Zuhui smacked Qing Jinchuan. Stop that. If you're so free, why don't you go help with the luggage? It's sweltering, and you're annoyed he's sweating? Qing Jinchuan deflated. He understood he couldn't stop the tide. With his mother's protection, Xiao Qingze had obtained the divine sword Shang Feng Bao in their family. The CEO of Xiao Enterprise becoming his minion didn't sound too bad after hearing his niece's words. Qing Shanhe was fully absorbed in playing games with his granddaughter. Out of sight, out of mind. There would be time to settle old and new grudges without his wife around. Xiao Qingze finished loading the luggage into the car. His back was drenched too. Fei Zuhui passed a bottle of water through the window. Xiao Qingze received it with both hands. Thank you, Auntie. Seeing his sweat-soaked shirt, satisfaction filled Fei Zuhui's eyes. She said, come over for dinner tomorrow night if you're free. Xiao Qingze froze in pleasant surprise. Had the heat muddled his brain and made him hallucinate? He looked to the woman beside him for confirmation. Qing Jinlan returned, what are you looking at me for? Can't you make it? The smile that spread across Xiao Qingze's dark eyes was dazzling. He regarded Fei Zuhui solemnly. Auntie, I'm free. Thank you for the invitation. Fei Zuhui's face also lit up with a smile, infected by his joy. Good then. Qing Liqui blinked at her father. So Dad passed Grandpa's test? Qing Jinlan adjusted her sunglasses and turned her gaze away. Though she spoke to him, her tone was aloof. Many relatives will come tomorrow. Be early. Gazing at her serene profile, Xiao Qingze's voice was gentle. I'll be there early. Qing Jinlan glanced his way before getting into the car. The window rolled up slowly between them, but their eyes locked again. Let's go, Qing Jinlan said softly. Xiao Qingze's smile was deep as a clear pond. Qing Liqui leaned over her mom's lap and waved energetically through the window. See you tomorrow, Dad. See you tomorrow, Liqui. Xiao Qingze walked a few steps after the slowly pulling away car until it disappeared from sight. Yuan Zhongzhou stomped out of a nearby car, keys jangling in his hand. He mocked, stop looking. The car's long gone. Seems like great progress this time, huh? Proposal successful? Xiao Qingze withdrew his gaze from the distance and looked at him. No. Yuan Zhongzhou was puzzled by the beaming smile that wouldn't fade from his face. Didn't succeed yet you're grinning like a peacock in heat? Xiao Qingze unceremoniously kicked him. What would a lifelong bachelor like you understand? Ouch. Yuan Zhongzhou bristled. I've only been single for a few weeks. How dare a chronic bachelor of many years look down on me? I can't take this. I'm applying for work injury compensation. He flung the keys at Xiao Qingze. I'm hurt. Can't drive. You'll have to drive. Xiao Qingze looked him up and down. Where are you hurt? My soul, Yuan Zhongzhou deadpanned. Fragile soul. Xiao Qingze got into the driver's seat. Whether he drove or not, Xiao Qingze was in the mood to drive now. Slumped in the passenger seat, Yuan Zhongzhou took a long time to recover from the blow his soul took. When he came to, he realized they weren't headed to the office. Aren't we going to the office? You're going the wrong way. We'll stop by the mall first. What for? To buy things. What do you need to buy? Get Christine Kong to handle it with a list. No, I have to oversee it personally. Gifts for Qing Shanhe and Fei Zuhui, Qing Jinchuan's family, and Qing Jinlan's younger brother's family. He had prepared those already, but since she said many relatives were coming, he needed more. Yuan Zhongzhou fainted from dizziness. He was already pitiful enough as a single dog, and now he had to accompany a man who was smug about both his career and love to go shopping. Could heaven make his trials any more miserable? Qing Jinlan had told Xiao Qingze to come early, but she didn't expect him to arrive before 2 o'clock. She had taken time off until tomorrow, and her work was already arranged, so she was in no hurry to go to the hotel. He had suddenly changed his schedule to take time off, so there was probably a pile of work waiting for him at the company. She had wanted to ask why he was so free that he came so early, but seeing the slightly sunken eye sockets, she swallowed the words back down. He would look like this after being up all night. Xiao Qingze looked at her and said, Did I come too early? I thought that if anything needed to be prepared, I could lend a hand. Qing Jinlan brought him a glass of water and said, My mom and little Liqui are still sleeping. Even if we need to prepare, it won't be too late to start after 4. She paused for a moment before asking, Have you eaten lunch? Does drinking 2 cups of coffee count? What do you think? She saw that his stomach didn't want to work anymore. Xiao Qingze smiled. Now that you mention it, I am rather hungry. Qing Jinlan looked at his neat and tidy hair and wanted to mess it up mischievously, but her hand eventually landed on his neck, straightening his suit collar. Aren't you hot? He was dressed too formally today. I'm fine. It's still early to meet my parents. Who are you dressing up for? Take off your jacket first, I'm tired just looking at you. Help me take it off. Qing Jinlan still couldn't help herself and messed up his hair into a tangled bird's nest. She held his face in her hands and looked left and right. This was much more pleasing to the eye. Him being so formal made her a little nervous too. Xiao Qingze didn't mind his new hairstyle. Do you prefer me with this hairstyle? I don't like you no matter how you look. Qing Jinlan removed the arm wrapped around her waist and walked into the kitchen. Dumplings or clear noodle soup? Xiao Qingze got up, took off his suit jacket, draped it on the sofa, and followed her into the kitchen. What do you want to eat? There was delight in Xiao Qingze's eyes. You're making it for me? Qing Jinlan asked him again, which one do you want? Xiao Qingze pushed his luck. I want both. Wanting both was not impossible either. Qing Jinlan simply made dumpling noodle soup, which was easy enough. The dumplings and noodles were ready-made, just needing some leafy greens added in. She boiled it up in under 10 minutes and the broth was well balanced too. He didn't eat cilantro, so there was no need to garnish it. Xiao Qingze embraced her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. He seemed a little overwhelmed. Why are you being so nice to me today? Qing Jinlan's hand paused for a moment as Xiao Qingze held her even tighter. I'm not being nice to you. You probably don't know what you'll be facing tonight. My brother and his buddies will all be there today. Each of those guys can drink more than a normal person's share, and add some elders in the family who can also drink a lot, so be prepared to be forced to drink in turns. Xiao Qingzi's chin gently nuzzled her soft neck. Don't worry, I'm mentally prepared. Isn't it said that being plied with alcohol is something every son-in-law has to go through when meeting the in-laws? My alcohol tolerance is decent and I don't act out when drunk. The only downside is I tend to black out when drunk. Qing Jinlan's hands stilled for a moment. Xiao Qingzi held her even tighter. Meow meow, I'm sorry I couldn't remember that night. That was the night they had little Liqui, but he had always treated that night as a hazy dream, with no clear memories, yet also unwilling to forget. Qing Jinlan stared blankly at the oilseed rape in the bowl, her mind somewhat distracted. You don't need to apologize. I didn't intend for you to remember back then either. Otherwise she wouldn't have endured the soreness to clean up the aftermath immaculately after that night. All right, let's not talk about the past. Qing Jinlan turned to look at him. Weren't you saying you were hungry? The noodles will get mushy if you don't eat them soon. Xiao Qingzi looked into her eyes, leaned in to wrap her lips in his, first biting them lightly, then showering them with delicate little pecks. Qing Jinlan didn't close her eyes as usual, but looked at him quietly instead. Xiao Qingzi turned her shoulders so they faced each other, changing from a back hug to kissing face to face. Why aren't you closing your eyes? He murmured ambiguously against her lips. Qing Jinlan panted lightly, stubborn defiance in her gaze. You didn't close yours either. Xiao Qingzi smiled against her lips, his warm breath caressing her face. Qing Jinlan's long eyelashes fluttered rapidly a few times but she still didn't close her eyes. Xiao Qingzi's lips slowly traveled up along her pert nose, finally landing on her eyelids, first the left, then the right. Despicable, Qing Jinlan bit down on his chin in retaliation, but didn't use any force, just lightly nipping it. Xiao Qingzi lifted her by the waist forcefully, despicably having his way. In the end, the dumpling noodles became just dumpling soup, all the broth absorbed by the noodles. Qing Jinlan sat across from him, cradling her heated cheek in one hand, watching him eat with great relish. Don't force yourself if you can't finish it. Xiao Qingzi finished up the leftovers in 3 or 2 mouthfuls, then wiped his mouth with a napkin and gave his verdict. The most delicious meal I've ever had. Little Liqui had woken up from her nap and was standing in the living room, rubbing her eyes and looking for her mother. Qing Jinlan first went to respond to her daughter, then mouthed to him, a man's mouth is a lying ghost. With the noodles and dumpling skins soaked until white, how could it possibly taste good? Hearing her mother's voice, little Liqui ran into the kitchen and saw her parents. Her eyes smiled into little crescent moons. Mama and Papa were whispering sweet nothings to each other. Xiao Qingzi picked her up with one arm. Baby, happy birthday. Little Liqui responded softly, thank you, Papa. But looking at Papa's messy hair, she reached out and stroked it. Papa, your hairstyle today is so cool. Mama did it for me. If Mama did it, then it was even cooler. Little Liqui looked at her mother. Mama, can you do a beautiful princess hairdo for me today? She was a girl, she had to have a very beautiful hairstyle, not a cool one. Of course, darling. Qing Jinlan pinched her little cheek. Qing Jinlan led little Liqui to do her hair and pick out clothes, while Xiao Qingzi cleaned up the kitchen and washed the dishes. Chatter and laughter, both loud and soft, floated out from the dressing room, blending with the sounds of running water in the kitchen, harmonious and melodious. Xiao Qingzi's lips quirked up gently, his eyes warm. The birthday party decorations were handled by professionals. Following little Liqui's wishes this year, the theme was a frozen wonderland. As soon as little Liqui stepped into the yard, her eyes widened. The castle that had appeared was exactly the same as the one she had seen in the movie. As she ran towards the castle, she exclaimed to Grandma Fei and Grandpa Qing on the stairs, Grandma, Grandpa, isn't this just too beautiful? Seeing their granddaughter so happy made Fei Zhuhui and Qing Shanhe even happier. Qing Jinlan went to her parents and said, Dad, Mom, Xiao Qingzi is here, he's outside. If he's here let him in quickly, what's he doing waiting outside? Fei Zhuhui turned and called to housekeeper Chu, Sister Chu, open all the doors, the guests will start arriving. Qing Shanhe gave a light snort. He sure came early. So Xiao Qingzi did come in, but was left sitting on the sofa for over 10 minutes by Qing Shanhe. When Qing Jinchuan came back from work and saw him as soon as he entered, his brow furrowed, about to ask what he was doing coming so ridiculously early. Xiao Qingzi stood up and said to Qing Jinchuan, Big brother, you're back. Damn him, with that one sentence he choked back all of Qing Jinchuan's words. Fei Zhuhui kicked open Qing Shanhe, who was blocking the kitchen door, and brought out the tea herself. A quick show of dominance was enough. Where was this leaving someone hanging about? With the mistress out, Qing Shanhe also came out and let his daughter out as well. The courtyard was filled with Qing Liqui's laughter and chatter, which contrasted with the rather grave atmosphere inside the house. Qing Jinlan sat next to Xiao Qingze, while Fei Zhuhui sat in the middle seat on the sofa. Qing Shanhe and Qing Jinchuan sat opposite them, both with stern expressions on their faces, staring motionless at Xiao Qingze. Despite being stared at by 4 eyes, Xiao Qingze remained composed. He brought out the things he had prepared beforehand and filled up the whole coffee table. For Fei Zhuhui there was a set of jade ornaments, for Qing Shanhe there was a genuine calligraphy work by an ancient calligrapher, and for Qing Jinchuan there was a document, as well as gifts for her younger brother Qing Lichuan and his wife Suyan's family. Only Fei Zhuhui accepted the box handed over by Xiao Qingze with both hands. Qing Shanhe and Qing Jinchuan did not take them. Fei Zhuhui opened the box to take a look, her smile deepened, and she said to Xiao Qingze, "Thank you, Qingze, I really like it." It wasn't that this set of jade ornaments was particularly valuable, but that he was able to find out her preferences rather than just randomly buying expensive gifts showed thoughtfulness. This was appreciated. Qing Shanhe looked even more displeased. Xiao Qingze had given his wife so many gifts, yet he rarely heard her say she really liked them. Qing Jinchuan stared at the document in front of her somewhat puzzled. She could probably guess that the gift Xiao Qingze gave to her father was some antique calligraphy, judging by the shape of the box. But she wondered what he meant by giving her this document. Driven by curiosity, she briefly flipped through it. It was a development plan for the L plot of land in Nanqing. It was written in a rather meaningful way. Xiao Qingze took out another document and glanced at Qing Jinlan before handing it to Qing Shanhe with both hands. "Uncle, this is a share transfer agreement." Qing Shanhe didn't move, so Xiao Qingze maintained his bent-over posture. Under the coffee table, Fei Zhuhui fiercely stomped on Qing Shanhe's foot. Only then did Qing Shanhe endure the muffled grunt in his throat and expressionlessly take it over. What shares could a share transfer agreement transfer? It certainly wouldn't be his Shao clan shares. Qing Shanhe flipped to the end and his brow quirked up. He asked Xiao Qingze, "Are you serious?" Xiao Qingze nodded. "I've already signed it. As soon as Jinlan signs it, it can take effect immediately." Qing Shanhe stared at him, deep in thought. If he wasn't mistaken, Xiao Qingze wanted to transfer half of the Shao clan shares currently in his name to his daughter Qing Liqui. Will your family elders and the board of directors agree? I can now call the shots at Shao clan. You know what this means? It meant that half of Shao clan would be surnamed Qing, and Jinlan would have equal say to him at Shao clan. Visit en Velben, cm for EU ovals. Xiao Qingze replied, I know. To him, it didn't matter whether the company was surnamed Xiao or Qing. What mattered was that she was by his side, along with their daughter Liqui. Qing Shanhe handed the document to Qing Jinlan. Qing Jinlan flipped halfway through then closed the document. She shook her head. I don't agree. Xiao Qingze looked at her. Qing Jinlan said to Qing Shanhe, there's no need. There was no need to use these things to prove anything or provide assurance. She had her own career and didn't need to rely on him in any way. If she eventually acknowledged him, it would be acknowledging him as a person, not because of other irrelevant factors. She didn't want their relationship to be complicated by gains and losses. That would make things messy. Qing Jinchuan took the document and also quirked a brow when she read to the end. She suggested, if eldest aunt doesn't want it, just transfer it to Liqui instead. Men never trusted other men. Some things had to be taken even if unwanted. Since Xiao Qingze wanted to be Liqui's father in name and status, he should demonstrate the appropriate sincerity. Xiao Qingze looked at Qing Jinlan. Qing Jinlan didn't speak. Xiao Qingze said softly, that works too. In the end these things will be Liqui's anyway, it's just a matter of sooner or later. Qing Shanhe was quite satisfied with what he said. He picked up the tea in front of him and took a sip. Qing Jinlan looked into Xiao Qingze's eyes and finally nodded. A gentle light flowed in Xiao Qingze's eyes. He hooked her little finger with his and a smile spread across his face. Sitting on the side, Fei Zhuhui's mouth quirked up as she watched their little interaction. She also picked up her tea and took a sip. Qing Liqui called from the courtyard, Grandma, little uncle and little auntie, Duo Duo and Stinky are here. Qing Liqui's little uncle was Qing Lichuan, a doctor at a Yuan Shenhua hospital. Her little aunt was Su Yan, the CEO of an exhibition company. They had a pair of cute twin babies less than 6 months old, two soft and sticky little milk buns who would squint and smile at whoever they saw. Before long, Shen Shuwen arrived with Shinchuki, followed closely by Li Peifeng's car. Li Peifeng was feeling very complicated right now. He had already received a call from Qing Jinchuan earlier saying not to make things easy for Xiao Qingze today, but Xiao Qingze was like a brother to Shen Shuwen, who would become his sister-in-law in the future. He hadn't even successfully pursued his wife yet, so offending his future brother-in-law now would make his wife pursuit even harder. So as Li Peifeng wavered for about 3 seconds between supporting future brother-in-law and supporting good buddy Qing Jinchuan, he finally decided to stand with the future brother-in-law. Zhouwen and Feng Yan were just there to watch the show and see if Qing Jinchuan could display his might against this big brother-in-law today. Qing Lichuan had surgery tomorrow so couldn't drink tonight. So if Qing Jinchuan's group of good buddies gathered today to get Xiao Qingze drunk, only he and Shi Ran were really trying. But by the end, it wasn't Shi Ran and Qing Jinchuan getting Xiao Qingze drunk, but the two of them competing against each other to drink more. Xiao Qingze finally caught a breath, downed a cup of hot tea, and suppressed the alcohol buzz. Qing Jinlan walked over, saw his flushed ears and somewhat pale complexion, and knew he must have been plied with quite a bit of alcohol. Qing Jinlan said to Qing Jinchuan, "Brother, Dad is asking him over and he can't keep drinking with you." Qing Jinchuan and Shi Ran were still in the midst of their drinking competition and had no more attention to spare for Xiao Qingze. Qing Jinchuan waved his hand to signal them to take the man away. Her dad wouldn't go easy on him. Xiao Qingze still looked fairly sober, just a bit unsteady when he got up. Qing Jinlan held his hand and brought him to the kitchen, handing him a cup of honey water. "Are you okay? My dad called you over and you probably won't get to drink any less over there." "I'm fine, I'm always fine." He accepted the cup, lowering his voice for the next sentence, his gaze meaningful. Qing Jinlan glared at him. Xiao Qingze downed the honey water in one go, put down the cup, and hugged her. "Don't worry, consider this early practice. Our wedding will definitely involve heavier drinking." Qing Jinlan kicked his leg. Who was our and getting married with him? Go drink your alcohol. He clearly hadn't been plied enough yet if he still had the mindset to tease. As soon as Xiao Qingze appeared, the Qing clan's relatives and friends didn't need anything spelled out for them. This was clearly Liqui's father, their eyes were mirrors of each other. Some couldn't resist gossiping. How did Jinlan end up with someone from the Xiao clan? Fei Zuhui subtly intercepted. There's nothing wrong with the Xiao clan. We can't implicate the younger generation over grievances between the previous generation. The two of them had misunderstandings before and were able to resolve them and reunite after so many years. It's also fate. What could be more important than the children's happiness? Someone else said, the Xiao clan still has messy dealings nowadays. Even if it's less than before, the old master is still around. Jinlan's days won't be easy if she marries in. Fei Zuhui said, the Xiao clan is now led by Qingze, and he already bought a house right next to Jinlan. Even if they get married, it'll just be their family of 3 behind closed doors here. The old master won't be able to interfere. Qing Shanhe didn't introduce Xiao Qingze, only had him sit next to him. This could be considered acknowledging his identity. The Qing elders were excited at the prospect of a son-in-law coming to their door, especially from the Xiao clan. What were they waiting for? Bring out the wine! It wasn't easy to become a Qing clan son-in-law, let alone from the Xiao clan. At the children's table, Qing Liqui took a bite of sweet cake and whispered to Shinchuki, "At my mom and dad's wedding, I'm going to be a flower girl." Shinchuki's eyes lit up and she stopped her fork mid-bite of cake. "Me too, Qing Liqui. I'll do it with you." Yunqi asked, "Xiao Liqui, when did your dad and mom get married?" Qing Liqui shook her head, "I don't know, but it will be soon." Shinchuki was curious, "How do you know?" Qing Liqui replied, "Because my dad passed my grandfather's test." In fairy tales, the prince can be with the princess and start a happy life after passing the trials. Shinchuki said, "So your dad is moving to your house?" Qing Liqui took a bite of the cake and thought for a moment, "Yeah, my mom and I are here, of course my dad will move to our house." That's all for this part, truckers. See you all in next video.